hits this ball to deep right center field, and this one is going to sail out. And the Rockies have a third run. For Moniak, his 18th of the year. It's 5-3. Fly ball deep center field. Did he get enough? Yes, indeed. Two-run pitch hit, home run. Hunter Goodman, the old pitch hit, two-run home run card played by Warren Schaefer, 6'5", Colorado.
JoJo's done an incredible job, man. This is going to happen from time to time. Our pen has been our strength. Day off tomorrow, you go to it. But unfortunately, it didn't work out.
Yeah, that's the voice of Ali Marmol, and yes, that's highlights from the Colorado Rockies side. Why would we do that, T-Bone? The Cardinals simply couldn't lose a series, a game against Colorado, the worst team in Major League Baseball. Could they?
Well, they don't look that bad.
Well, apparently not when they face the Cardinals, because the Cardinals lost yesterday 6-5, as you heard it there on the call. JoJo Romero, the bullpen, kind of combusts late, and the Cardinals lose the series against the Rockies. Welcome, everyone, in to BK and Ferrario. Obviously, no BK today or tomorrow. He is out in Colorado for the rest of the weekend, but we've got Mr. 4K Bradford Bruns in studio with us.
Mr. 4K.
That's his new nickname here. If you haven't seen it, College Football Connection, 4K views up on our YouTube channel.
I thought you were talking about Sam Bradford and the prolific passing yards back in the day, but
we'll have to have another conversation about that one another day. T-Bone and Alex Ferrario with you. So I saw Derek Gould put this out earlier today. Since June 1st, the Cardinals are 2-2-1 in series against teams with winning records. Includes that series win that they had against the Dodgers and, of course, the Cubs. Since June 1st, the Cardinals are 1-6 in series against teams with losing records, including going 0-2 this season against the Rockies. T-Bone, my biggest thought last night or yesterday afternoon, watching them lose that game and fall right back to 500, is this is the core I'm supposed to get excited about? This core. Now, I understand the bullpen is what combusted, and we'll get to that in just a little bit because, frankly, I'm not too concerned about it. But in the series, you went up against a guy that the Cardinals had never seen before, and I forget his name in the first game of the series, but he had like a 7 ERA. Dolan? Yeah. We don't remember. But the Cardinals... Nope, Freeland was the second one that they couldn't figure out how to score a run against.
He was the one who was really good.
And
doesn't matter.
With runners in scoring position, you know, they went 0-6 in that game yesterday. Now, this one, they scored 5 runs, but the bullpen couldn't hold on. But I just couldn't help but think this is the core that we're supposed to get excited about. Watching the Herreras and the Burlesons and the Winns and the Donovans, all of these players that we've, I don't know if the right word is grown to love or kind of been forced to love over what these last couple of years have been, because this is what the Cardinals have been selling us on. Hey, this is the core that we believe can get us to the winning side. And Ali told us earlier this week, look, these guys are learning to be pros. But, man, when you go 1-6 in series since June 1st against teams that are under 500. And most of those games are because the offense has not been able to come through with big at-bats for you. That's really concerning at a time of the season when at one point we thought they could push for the playoffs. Another point we were like, oh, this is going to get really ugly really quick. I am stuck in the middle, which seems like a lot of Cardinals fans are, but the core not being good, very concerning.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of this team because, I mean, you mentioned it, they play well against the Dodgers, they play well against the Cubs, and then we get excited and we're like, playoffs? Are we talking about playoffs? They're just 3 games back of the New York Mets. And then the Rockies come to town and you're thinking, oh, man, this is when you build momentum. We talked about it on, I don't know what day it was, I guess Monday.
It doesn't matter.
I know. As the text line said, it doesn't matter multiple times. I go, okay, well, you take care of business against these below 500 teams. Boom, like maybe you can make this interesting down the stretch. And then you lose 2 or 3 of the Colorado Rockies. And one game was on the offense. Yesterday's game was the bullpen had its weird implosion, which, you know what, as Ali said, and I agree with, that's going to happen. So, okay, I don't want to make it. But also the offense didn't, put the nail in the coffin. They go 0-12 in the final 4 innings of that baseball game. Mm-hmm. I don't know what I'm supposed to make of the core, man. Even if you are a young and inexperienced, you shouldn't lose to the Rockies.
No.
You shouldn't lose to the White Sox a year ago, right? The only 2 teams in baseball over the last 2 years to lose the season series to the worst team in Major League Baseball history, the Chicago White Sox, and the team that's trying to catch the Chicago White Sox for worst team in Major League Baseball history, the 2025 Rockies, are the St. Louis Cardinals and the Washington Nationals.
Oh, not a company you want to be in.
No. Nationals are, at least they've got stars, but they're in a rebuild. I don't know what to. This is not a great sign for this core that they can't find a way to just beat up on the Colorado Rockies. Look, it's one thing if you don't do great against a team like Miami, right? Miami's below 500. They're a team that, they're kind of up and coming. What are the Rockies are like tanking to the. They could be worse next year.
And that's the thing, because a lot of people will look at it and say, well, they didn't score a run in 3 games against the Pirates, guys. Like you talked yesterday when we were in the office, I can at least make reasoning with that of like, look, you saw Mitch Keller, you saw Paul Skeens, you saw elite pitching. I can understand your offense struggling in that one. But when you go up against the Rockies, where you're playing in Busch Stadium, where like Colorado, at least you can make the excuse like, hey, it's a hitter's ballpark. It makes life very miserable for your pitching staff. You're doing this in Busch Stadium, and your offense can't find a way to come up with a hit with runners in scoring position. So I'm looking at this just to isolate it even more over on Fangraphs since June 1st. Some of these core pieces have performed well for you, like Alec Burleson since June 1st, a 284 batting average with a 480 slug. And a lot of these guys just don't do well with slug right now. But then you look at other players. Brendan Donovan, 229. Victor Scott, 182. I can make reasoning with that. He's a younger player. Lars Nootbaar, 201. Two of the best guys for you since June 1st have been Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman. So the core members, even Masyn Winn. Masyn Winn's 256, slug 346, but WRC plus is around 80 right now. Like, the core pieces that I looked at the beginning of the season saying, look, I can at least see the pieces where you're at. You've got the shortstop. You've got the utility guy in Brendan Donovan. You've got the bat of Ivan Herrera. Now it feels like that's starting to crumble. And, man, I got to imagine if you're Chaim Bloom and you're seeing that crumble for the Cardinals, that makes the offseason even more difficult to handle than what you thought it was already going to be.
And I think, frankly, one of the reasons, the primary reason here, guys, as to why you have seen so many ebbs and flows with the offense over the course of the past few weeks, you referenced his name just a minute ago, Alex. Let's say it. Your all-star representative this season, Brendan Donovan, when you don't have somebody any longer consistently getting on base, let alone being able to drive the ball and setting the table in that prototypical fashion, everybody else who follows, especially when, Tanner, we've talked about it countless times, when you can't rely on those mashers, when you don't have guys stacked in the middle of the order or anywhere else. Yesterday, for crying out loud, now, some of this, it was based on circumstances. You didn't have Wilson Contreras available, but for crying out loud, you were leaning on Masyn Winn to bat third in that order yesterday. So while you had some glimpses even during the Rockies series, I was left after yesterday's game, guys, with the feeling that, you know what, this pretty much sums up. It encapsulates the 2025 St. Louis Cardinals insofar as you win a season series against LA, you play well following up with that against Chicago, and yet you find a way to drop 2 of 3 to the one of the worst teams of all time. It was just too fitting.
Over on our Air Comfort Service text line, which you can text in right now, 314-399-9646. We're also live up on our YouTube channel. Our studio cam is brought to you by the Air Alliance team over at YouTube 101 ESPN. The graveyard is live and active from the 316. Guys, is this the same conversation we were having about the Blues before the Four Nations last season? No, because they weren't. It was the same conversation we were having about the Blues 2 seasons ago when they couldn't beat the San Jose Sharks. Remember when they got shut out by the Columbus Blue Jackets? And we were like, what is happening right now? They had that problem 2 years ago, and they said, we've got to fix that. They actually fixed it last year. It's just they were inconsistent in terms of their gameplay. And a lot of that we found out was Drew Bannister.
Whoa.
This is like sorry, I was shot at Drew Bannister once again. This is like we're talking about the Blues from 2 years ago. They've got to figure out how to beat bad teams. We know they could play the Dodgers. You know that they can beat the Cubs. They can beat the Pod. Like, they've done that. It's losing to the Pirates. It's losing to the Rockies. It's losing to the Marlins, the White Sox. That's what's plagued this Cardinals team. And frankly, T-Bone, I guess I ask the question, Are the answers that the Cardinals are finding out about some of these guys is they're just not full-time Major League Baseball players?
I don't think it's that. I think what they're finding out, I mean, you mentioned the Blues, and it's a good comp from 2 years ago. What was the issue for the Blues? Now, it's a little different because, like, defensively they weren't great. But it was, hey, some of our pieces just aren't playing in the role that they should be at, right? Yeah. Jordan Kyrie's not a top-line winger. Jordan Kyrie at his best is on the second line like he was for the Blues this past season, and is a guy that can take advantage of some mismatches when he goes up against other second lines. That was kind of the story for the Blues. They had pieces that weren't playing in the right spots, and that's the case for the Cardinals. full moment of honesty. I was busy. We did a Rebel Report, by the way, yesterday. You check that out. Yeah, on the podcast page. And on our YouTube channel, 101 ESPN STL. So I was busy with that, and then was working on stuff. Full moment of transparency. I had no idea Masyn Winn hit third until Bradford just brought it up from yesterday's game.
Oh, really? You're welcome.
No idea.
I thought you saw that with the lineup.
That goes to show you where they're at with their lineup, because that's the right call from Ollie Marmol.
Oh, yeah.
To hit Masyn Winn third, because he's typically been good against lefties. They are left-handed heavy. You're without Wilson Contreras, as Bradford mentioned in that game. That's the right call. Masyn Winn should not hit third for any lineup in baseball, unless you are a bad team. You
had 4 left-handed hitters going up against a lefty pitcher.
Yeah.
And the guys hit first, 4th, 5th, 7th.
And do you want Burleson now hitting cleanup against lefties? I think not. We've talked about his second half
Gorman
numbers.
hitting 5th.
Well,
against lefties.
This is just, they've got so many pieces. One, they are too left-handed heavy. Mm-hmm. So when they go up against a lefty, they run into an issue like this that we're talking about. And second, they just don't have the stars in the order. Again, it is the same conversation. You don't have the guys in the middle of the order to where everybody can bump back into their role. It's the same conversation we had back when Bader was a Cardinal, right? Bader should not hit 5th for you if you're going to be a team that thinks you are a playoff team or a contending team.
Sorry, T-Bone. That's a really fun experiment. Real quick, let's just run through this together of what the lineup was yesterday. Because with the exception of Nolan Arenado, everyone was healthy for you of what you were using in this spot. Brendan Donovan, a leadoff hitter. If a team was playoff bound, you feel comfortable with that.
I think he's a leadoff hitter for a playoff caliber team.
Ivan Herrera hitting 2.
He's somewhere in that 2 through 5 range, probably.
Herrera 3, or not Herrera 3, Winn 3. I think we all can agree no. Although T-Bone doesn't think he's a 2-hole hitter, and he's a pretty damn good 2-hole hitter. So okay. Anyway, Burleson 4.
Maybe. I think you feel better with Burleson being like that 5 or 6 hitter for you in a lineup.
And I think if you have a elite 3-hole right-handed hitter, you feel a little bit better about Burleson because he's going to be getting some competitive at-bats. Gorman 5.
Again, Gorman probably 1 spot, 2 spots too high.
Walker 6.
For him, too high.
Nootbaar 7.
He's probably profiles as the Donovan. I think he could be a leadoff hitter on a contending team.
So JC at 8, Pages 9. I think we're fine with those two. So you're talking about your 3-hole hitter, your 4-hole hitter, your 5-hole hitter. You're missing middle of the order bats. And that's just it. That's just where this team is at right now. On the flip side of this, of course, the narrative from that game yesterday, despite the fact that you lost 2 against the Rockies, was that your bullpen imploded. Did anybody have any panic feelings in that situation? And maybe it's just for where the Cardinals are at because they sold at the deadline. If that would have happened before the deadline, I'd be like, what are we doing here? Man, Romero had a bad outing. Romero's been one of their best pitchers all season long, specifically against lefties. And Leahy just gave up a run. And Leahy's been a guy that's been used a hell of a lot. But O'Brien got through the innings still. You still saw the strikeout stuff with Romero and Leahy. I don't feel like I was concerned at all after a blow-up from your bullpen. Like Ollie said, it's been good for you since the deadline. This was just one of those outings that didn't go your direction.
Yeah, their bullpen's been really good, so I'm not concerned about it. I think this was, as Ollie said, it's every now and then bullpen arms are going to have a blow-up. That was the first home run Jojo Romero, by the way, has allowed this season since dating all the way back April 21st at the Atlanta Braves. He's only allowed 2 home runs all season long, and he happened to give up his second one yesterday to what is the Rockies' best hitter when they decided to go to their bench to Goodman, and he hit that home run. Sure, they kind of put themselves in some tough spots, and Ollie mentioned, I kind of cut it from that quote just for time's sake, but he mentioned in that cut of, hey, we kind of led ourselves to trouble. We were allowing the leadoff guys to get on. So they flirted with danger all game long. Their bullpen's been really freaking good, though. There's a lot of still encouraging pieces to where one bullpen game, if you look at what their bullpen ERA is since the trade deadline, it's all the way down to 20th. That's because it got inflated yesterday. Their bullpen's been very good outside of that.
Yeah, and Tanner, I think we disagree a little bit as well as far as the usage here for one Jojo Romero. But by the same token,
Bradford
you look at
brought up pitches thrown in a month to me.
It is
in the office.
legitimate.
Easy, Bradford.
Hey, he is 7 pitches shy. 7.
This isn't Little League. He can pitch again tomorrow.
Matching his single-month high-water mark. Look, do you want all of these guys to be run into the ground in the last couple of months of the season? No. The arrangement yesterday, the order that we saw, that was exactly what you wanted. Leahy, followed by O'Brien, and then Romero. So, again, the order of operations there, the way in which Marmol went about his business, I think it is to be lauded. And you haven't had these setbacks up until this point. So yesterday, in that department at least, unlike the order, it was a hiccup.
I think Bradford's just got a little Matt Bowman, Mike Matheny PTSD. You see a lot of innings, you're like, oh, geez, they're going to break this guy again, too. Understandably so.
He broke Sechrist.
He broke a lot of them. This one from Derek Gould as well as we wrap it up. Cards' new look late inning trio had a 1.1 ERA and 16-plus innings pitched with 4 saves and 3 wins since the deadline. And the Cardinals had yet to lose a game in which every one of them appeared. And, of course, that was the first one that happened. T-Bone gave you the number on JoJo Romero. So the Cardinals lose to the Rockies yesterday, 6-5. They lose the season series. And now they get the day off before the Yankees roll into town. Plenty more baseball conversation coming your way. Coming up at 15 minutes, we've got some NFL quick hitters, including some NFL coaching tiers that we'll bring to you. But coming up next, Steve Ott was with us on the Last Minute Blues podcast yesterday, and he was talking about Jimmy Snuggurud. And I thought to myself, can Jimmy Snuggurud impact the Blues the same way that Vladimir Tarasenko did? I'll explain coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
Start your day with the morning after on 101 ESPN. Get in the know first on everything St. Louis sports with Tim McKernan, Doug Vaughn, and Martin Kilcoy. Listen to TMA weekday mornings from 7 to 11 a.m. on 101 ESPN. The morning after is presented by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Along with Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. So yesterday we had Steve Ott, Blues Associate Coach, in studio with us for the Last Minute Blues podcast. You can get that wherever you get your podcasts from or over on our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL because he was in studio with us. So you can take a look at that one. Of course, the Redbird Report is up there with T-Bone and BK, a new episode that dropped yesterday. So plenty of podcasts that you can check out. But it was an outstanding conversation we had with Steve Ott, just talking about his career, the state of the Blues. But he mentioned one guy, Jimmy Snuggurud, talking about what they saw in the small sample size last season and how excited he is for the upcoming year, the first full year of Jimmy Snuggurud.
So impressed with the kid, his maturity level, his commitment to get better every single day and just kind of absorbing the information. Once we got him up and running in the practices, he you could just see his detail within the game, and that made him an instant NHL player. And then from the detail was his skill level. He was making plays and passes and seeing guys that we just kind of started moving them up the lineup. And the higher end players that want to play the skill game, they started to see his package that he could bring towards them, and then you add in the shot. You talk to what his ceiling is. We'll all wait and see. But you know what? He's got tremendous work ethic, his hockey IQ, all those areas of game to make him, an exceptional player going forward. So I'm really excited about the kid.
So the more he was talking about it, the more I started to think back to the comp that we made all of last year, T-Bone. 2011-2012 Blues team, the one that Payne was fired, Ken Hitchcock took over. They were a bad team 13 games in, and they made the playoffs. That year, they had two guys that scored more than 20 goals, and one of them was hurt for half the season, essentially. Perron had 21, but David Backes had 24 goals. That was it. They had a few other guys at double digits. It was a team that was 10th worst in goals scored in the National Hockey League. And then the lockout shortened season in 2012-2013. And most Blues fans remember that was Tarasenko's first year. He played 38 games and scored 8 goals and had 19 points. That season, again, shortened season, but with Tarasenko, they went from 10th worst in the National Hockey League to being 15th in terms of goals scored. And then the following season, when it was a full 82-game schedule, the Blues were 6th best offensively in the National Hockey League, and Tarasenko scored 21 in 64 games. I specifically remember that team in 2012-2013 because Ken Hitchcock used to talk about how when you have an elite sniper on your roster, it opens up more ice for everyone else, wherever he plays. And I started to wonder, can Snuggurud have that impact for this Blues team? Now, not saying that they lacked the offense that the Blues did back in 2011, 2012, because they've got Kyrou, they've got Holloway, they've got Thomas, they've got Buchnevich, they've got Neighbors, they've got depth. But can Snuggurud impact the Blues the same way that Tarasenko did that first season, to where when the guy stepped onto the ice, it was a whole different game planning for a player that had an elite shot when the puck was on his stick, and then you started to see the offense really expand with a Schwartz, with a Stewart, with a Berglund, with an Oshie, because it went from top down offensive depth thanks to Tarasenko's skill.
Yeah, I'm always cautious when you get guys that come into the league, and though Snuggurud did get his cup of coffee at the end of the year and then got the playoff run where he was impressive, even though I don't think the numbers were there to back it up necessarily, just the goals, assists, and all that. Mm-hmm. I'm typically pretty cautious of, hey, let's not put too much pressure on him. Like, he's a kid. He's going to go through the growing pains of the NHL, and I still think that's going to be the case, but man, hearing Steve Ott talk with you guys on the Last Minute Blues pod and hearing him kind of talking about Jimmy Snuggurud's game, I'm glad you came up with the Tarasenko comp, because I was trying to think last night, like, man, who is a guy that can just come in and just, like, snap of the fingers, he is an NHLer and doesn't need growing pains necessarily. And if he can be a guy that can become a 25 goal scorer, 20-plus goal scorer in just year one full season, and there's no real kind of lapses for a rookie at the NHL level, man, you want to talk about an offense that was already, you mentioned how Vladdy took the Blues offense from where it was bad to about middle of the pack, and then they kind of took off. They were middle of the pack last year. I think we counted they were 15th in the NHL in goals for per game.
Yeah.
If Snuggurud just steps into this lineup and is just immediately a 25-goal scorer, I mean, you're talking about the Blues, at minimum, having a team that should be top 10 in offense, because you've got Snuggurud that could be 20 to 25 goals. You've got Kyrou who can be 30-plus. Holloway was 26 last year. Neighbors might be able to creep his way up to that 25-goal range. Thomas will probably be there. He missed 12 games last year and had 21. Maybe you finally get that bounce-back year for Buch. But, I mean, if you look at Pavel Buchnevich with the St. Louis Blues, this was the first year in which he didn't have 25 goals. He's been a 25-goal scorer 3 of the last 4 years. So, I mean, they have the chance to get back to the level where they were in 2019, where they had the 9 20-goal scorers. They had, I think it was 5 25-plus goal scorers.
Yeah.
They may be able to get back to that while also playing that pack mentality that they played then as well, when you add in Suter and Bukestad, and didn't even mention Shen, but I don't think he can get to 25 goals, but he can get to 20 for sure. Snuggurud's the piece that can really unlock this, that if he comes in here, is ready to go right away, there are little growing pains, not anything significant. That's how the Blues can get to being a top 10 offense in the NHL.
And the thing about Jim Montgomery, too, is, when people talk about him, they say, oh, well, he's just he's a defensive-minded coach. And although that's very true, like he prides his team on defense. Go look at that Boston Bruins team, the one that was historically one of the best in the NHL that won 65 games. He had 5 guys that scored more than 20 goals. He had 9 players who had double digits on that Bruins roster, and 3 of them had 27, 27, and 61 goals. That was David Pastrnak. That's just absurd. With Jimmy Snuggurud, and again, I'm not making the comp that he's going to be Vladimir Tarasenko, because you don't put that type of pressure. The moment Tarasenko scored those 2 goals against Detroit in his NHL debut, you knew that they had a star on their hands. But everybody you talk to about Snuggurud talks about that shot. And I remember Tarasenko, it wasn't just the shot, it was his IQ on the ice, and it was his ability to make plays with the puck. Passing, Ken Hitchcock used to say he was better at that than he was at shooting and scoring goals. It changes the dynamic of a roster, and frankly, it kind of makes it understandable why they were willing to move on from a Zach Bolduc when you've got a guy like Snuggurud who can expand that offense. The other thing that Steve Ott brought up, which kind of ties into this, and it's a nugget that popped out to you, T-Bone, just like it did to me, was when we asked him about the culture of this Blues team and kind of where he sees it at right now.
First of all, I'm going to start with just the chemistry and the culture of the squad. The leadership led by Schenner, Thomas, Parayko, Falker. These guys have gelled this team. If we take that, that recipe that we did the last 50 games of the season there and into playoffs and transform this year, and the way they brought each other along, you could feel it in the room now. Mm-hmm. And that excites me. They want to play for each other. They're the shot blocking, the little detail things that are the hard areas of the game, they're all committed to. And now when I talk to guys throughout the summer, it really excites me because they're talking about the passion of winning and doing well and being a playoff caliber championship team. We can do it. There's no doubt in my mind. Again, the building blocks, the foundational steps, all those areas, that's starting training camp. I know this team will be ready to rock and roll and be ready to go. So that excites me for this upcoming season.
Again, that's Steve Ott on the Last Minute Blues podcast. And T-Bone, I understand from people listening, all those are words, because it doesn't matter what you say, that these guys feel it right now. They're ready to go. You got to back it up on the ice, because the last 2 years, they've ended the season on hot streaks. They've missed the playoffs, and then they've started poorly in October. And that's got to change for this team to have the different dynamic. But I couldn't help but feel the way that he was talking was that, I think this culture might have shifted a little bit. Like, now there's no more of these, how do you fit into our plans moving forward? The Veranas, the Kapanens, the Sammy Blaze. Now it's these guys tasted the playoffs, saw the streak that it took to get into the playoffs, and they look around and they say, you're going to be here for the next 5+ years. Now it feels very similar to what they did when they opened up that winning window 10 years ago.
Yeah, when I heard that cut, I couldn't help but think, okay, I'm not a big culture guy. I'm not big on the whole locker room dynamic thing because I think it gets overstated. I'm not trying to deny that it doesn't somewhat matter. It does. But it finally feels like they're getting back towards kind of a winning culture. The thing that Doug Armstrong has been saying that he wanted to get back into that locker room with Shen, Thomas, guys that have experienced it. But now you've also gotten to a point where even the young guys, to your point, now feel like they are a part of this core. You don't have the kind of renters that are coming into the neighborhood and Vrana's here, drops off his bags, and then leaves a couple months later. You feel like everybody's kind of a part of the core. And there will be pieces that still continue to change in and out depending on how Doug Armstrong and Alexander Steen see this thing moving forward and what they think is needed. But for the most part, you have the pieces that they feel that they need to build a winning window and then eventually get themselves back into what could become a cup window. It feels like their culture has been fixed. And I think maybe it got a little overstated for how broken it was, but I do think it was a problem for them.
Oh, yeah.
The 2 or 3 previous years. So hearing that from Steve Ott makes me feel a lot better about where it is, to where I don't think there should be a conversation about it. Even if they get off to a rough start in October, November this year, I'm not going to be going, well, it's got to be the culture. It must be the... No, it's performance on the ice. It's not anything to deal with that locker room.
Yeah, you're in the player territory now where the guys you have aren't the right guys versus the culture needs to be changed or all of that X factor stuff is gone. Now it's the performance on the ice and if you're following through with what the goals are supposed to be for the Blues. Again, check out the Last Minute Blues podcast if you haven't done so. It was a great conversation with Steve Ott. We'll get to some of your questions coming up in about 15 minutes. Questions and answers over on our Air Comfort Service text line 314-399-9646. Also our YouTube chat at 101 ESPN STL. The Graveyard chat is where you can bring those questions to us. But coming up next, some NFL quick hitters, including who belongs in the top tier of NFL coaches. We'll get to that and a couple of other nuggets next here on 101 ESPN.
We've got your chance to win a 4-pack of passes to Monster Jam. Saturday, September 20th at the Dome at America's Center. Get ready to cheer, scream, and be amazed as massive Monster Jam trucks and world champion drivers take over St. Louis for the ultimate day packed with high-flying action and jaw-dropping stunts.
Get all the info and enter to win that free 4-pack of tickets for Monster Jam. Now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app.
can now watch 101 ESPN live on our Air Alliance Team Studio Cams. Catch every show live on our YouTube channel or at 101ESPN.com. 101 ESPN Studio Cams.
Presented by the Air Alliance Team Heating and Cooling. Getting the job done quickly, correctly, 100% of the time.
101 ESPN Sports Center.
Rocks rally past Redbirds. I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Yesterday afternoon, Hunter Goodman's pinch hit 2-run blast in the ninth lifted Colorado over St. Louis 6-5. Goodman victimizing JoJo Romero, who hadn't suffered a loss since April 23rd. Cardinals resume play tomorrow when Aaron Boone's Yankees arrive downtown. Elsewhere around MLB, San Diego sees his first place out west as Shohei Ohtani can't keep L.A. from getting swept at Angels Stadium. Next hour, Seattle-Baltimore action precedes Cubs-Blue Jays Chicago, sends Matthew Boyd against Max Scherzer there. This Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at Londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Let's get to some NFL quick hitters before we get to your questions on the other side. 314-399-9646, Air Comfort Service text line, YouTube chat, 101 ESPN STL. So the Athletic put together a college football coaching tier. We're going to get into that tomorrow. But creatively, we were like, let's come up with an NFL coaching tier. Because frankly, that's what matters right now is we're in training camp. Not that college football doesn't. It's right around the corner. But let's do some NFL coaching tiers here on BK and Ferrario, because originally, I'd come into this and think, I think there's only one guy at the top of the tier and nobody else is there, and it's Andy Reid. Has that changed, though, to where you have more guys in that top coaching tier? Because I kind of wonder if why am I blanking on his name? Bill's head coach, McDermott?
McDermott, yeah.
I wonder if McDermott has pushed himself into that because of how they've performed over the last couple of years, and I know they have an elite quarterback.
So this is why I find this fascinating, because I think there's probably 7 or 8 clear the top guys.
Really?
But I don't think all of them belong in tier 1. I don't think Andy Reid is in a tier of his own. I think Andy Reid is the top dog in tier 1.
Uh-huh.
But I think there are 2 other guys that belong in that list with him. One is Sean McVay. I mean, Sean McVay has proven to become one of the best offensive minds
that's a good point.
All of football. And he has the track record. He's got a Super Bowl to his name. He's been to 2 Super Bowls. Yeah. And the fact that he was able to churn through and say, Jared Goff, not good enough. We want Stafford. And then they went out and did it. And Goff's been good in Detroit, to his credit. The other one that I would throw in there, and it's kind of the same thing. He had a weird – last year was weird for them. I don't really put it on him. I put it on injuries, and Debo took a step back. I think Kyle Shanahan belongs in tier 1 as well.
You think he's still there?
I think he's still there. I mean, he's been to multiple Super Bowls. He's been able to be a quarterback whisperer with Brock Purdy, who I think we all agree is fine, but he's a top 15? And maybe a little bit outside the top 15 in terms of quarterbacks, in my opinion.
Ish.
So, yeah, I think Kyle Shanahan belongs in there. Again, he is such a great offensive mind, but that would be the 3 for me. I think Sean McDermott falls into tier 2, slightly on the outside looking in the same conversation with the Harbaugh in Baltimore, with Dan Campbell in Detroit. Sean Payton with the Denver Broncos, I think, is in that second tier with those guys. I think he belongs more in tier 2. I would put Mike Tomlin in tier 2. I don't think he's at the top.
No, I don't think he's there.
But I do believe he belongs in tier 2 and is close that I considered tier 1. But I would think that's just the 3 for me. Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, Andy Reid.
I like those. The one that I went back and forth with was Dan Campbell, and I think this is the season that I could decide if Dan Campbell's up there or not, because you lost all of your coordinators, and what do? Do you go out there and you still perform and make the other coordinators look great, or do you crumble a little bit? The Mike Tomlin one I went back and forth with, because I think Mike Tomlin is an elite coach. I think Mike Tomlin has just been given a crap sandwich in terms of his rosters over the years, and if you give him a capable quarterback, can he be a dominant force once again? But I think you have to prove that, and most teams, like we've mentioned, Sean McVay has found ways to do it where they've been missing elite pieces. So I'm with you on Mike Tomlin not being there.
Can Campbell get there if he doesn't get the Lions to a Super Bowl? If they're good again, get to the playoffs, and let's just say they can't beat the mighty tush push in the Philadelphia Eagles. Can he be put in tier 1? Because those other 3 guys that I said have
all won the Super Bowl.
Except for Kyle Shanahan. I guess he hasn't won it, but he's been
there, and he's been there. Hasn't he won it as an offensive coordinator?
No, because he lost as the Falcons OC.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah, it was 28-3. Yeah,
and
Stoltz knows about it.
Yeah, Stoltz remembers it as a second half run. I remember that. It was crazy. I personally would put Campbell up there because, I mean, as bad as they were and for how quick they've turned it around. And again, I just want to see it when you don't have those elite coordinators, because like what we give credit to Andy Reid, all these guys, like they make greatness out of their coordinators no matter who they have, because they're such a brilliant mind. And I think Dan Campbell is that, but it could give you a different opinion if that team takes a step backwards and the offense isn't as elite as it's been in the past.
If you return to the NFC title game, I do think that engenders more goodwill. I think it enhances your case. But at that point in time, I'm not even sure if Campbell, for that matter, would actually measure up to a McDermott. And to your guys' point, in my mind, Andy Reid still remains at that top of the mountain, because for all of the success that Sean McDermott has had, at this point in time, you have to advance to the biggest game of all of them. You actually have to make it to the Super Bowl. And we understand that the basic kryptonite, the number one form of kryptonite, has been Andy Reid and the Chiefs. But all of these guys, to me, are still on the outside looking in. I would elevate, actually, a Sean McVay ahead, for instance, of a Sean McDermott, of a Dan Campbell, of guys who haven't exactly won that hardware, i.e., the other Harbaugh, as well as Mike Tomlin in recent memory. So, and same thing, you could say the same thing, I think, for a Kevin O'Connell, too. As many people as they want to talk about a Kevin O'Connell and a Matt LaFleur, what have they actually won in the postseason? That's what I need to see.
Yeah, that second tier that I kind of said of some of the guys, and you mentioned some of them there, McDermott, LaFleur, why am I drawing blank on O'Connell in Minnesota? Yeah. In Minnesota, Sirianni, I think there's a case to be made that he could be in that top tier. I'm still skeptical. I mean, he was fighting with his quarterback prior to going into last season.
Yeah.
But some of these coaches that we're talking about, I think they need to get to, whether it's the Super Bowl or consecutive AFC Championship games. McDermott's the one that, to me, you got to get to the Super Bowl if you want to be in this conversation. Same with Campbell, same with LaFleur, same with O'Connell. Like, you guys are really good in the regular season. I got to see like legitimate success in the playoffs before I'm willing to start even listening on you bumping into that top tier.
So let's go to the other side of this coin then. Which coach is on the hottest seat going into the season? Because would you guys put Sean McDermott on the hot seat?
I would not.
I wouldn't either. But I know that people have put him there.
This is the classic. When I see this on Sean McDermott, it's the classic when Penn State fans are like, we got to get rid of James Franklin. I'm like, you win 10 games every year. Like,
enjoy it.
At some point, you're going to be a playoff team, probably going to win a couple games in the playoffs. The grass is not always greener on the other side. I don't think he's in that. I know that he will be put on there. I think the two hottest seats going into this year in the NFL, I think Cleveland Browns and Stefanski, which probably a little unfair to him, like that roster sucks. And then the second one for me, and I think it's the hottest seat in the NFL, probably cook pancakes on it, is the Miami Dolphins.
Yep.
McDaniel's going to have to prove that he can win. If this style can win or not, he's got Tyreek Hill that's basically fighting him, trying to get out. Tua, they decided to give the big contract to, which felt like a mistake the moment they signed it. McDaniel feels like he has the hottest seat in the NFL. Can he find a way to right the ship with Tua and then not only get to the playoffs, but show signs of success when they get to the playoffs? Because you play in these cold atmospheres, and as we saw when they went up against the Chiefs 2 years ago, in the cold, the high-flying Dolphins, they don't swim when it's a negative 20 degrees outside.
Yeah.
Mike McDaniel in Miami, it feels so weird, guys, just a couple of years later to say this almost feels like a non-starter of a story, but I almost do feel as if in that division, Miami is increasingly irrelevant. And circling back one more time to Buffalo, if McDermott can't get them back to the conference championship game, if there is a bit, just a tiny bit of regression in this particular season, I do think the seat is warm. It's not scorching, but I'm looking elsewhere in the AFC, specifically at Zach Taylor in Cincinnati. Okay, you did nothing. Well, your front office specifically did nothing. You have basically made that bet. Insofar as where the offense is concerned, you have given each and every available resource to your franchise quarterback in Joe Burrow. But for all of the money given then to Jamar Chase and also T. Higgins too, and still so much of the really the conundrums that we have there about Hendrickson and whether you have long-term answers on defense, you aren't going to consistently win that way in the National Football League. If you basically have no ability in the trenches, you're going to max out at 7-8 wins, and I think he is coaching for his life this season.
One more NFL quick hitters here on BK and Ferrario. This just came out right before we went on the air, and we talked about this yesterday, and I made the joke that Rashee Rice is probably going to play like the first 6 games of the season, then get suspended, and then be back and healthy for a playoff push. Well, I might have been onto something, T-Bone, because the NFL has basically said the disciplinary hearing with Rashee Rice is going to be on September 30th, 4 weeks into the season, which means he should be available for the Chiefs to play the Chargers, the Eagles, the Giants, the Ravens. Then have 4 weeks off, and then be back for some type of push potentially for the Kansas City Chiefs. And, of course, that's with the disciplinary, depending on what they do, but you would imagine it's going to be...
If he gets suspended.
If he gets suspended, I would imagine you're talking about somewhere between 4 and 6 weeks. But NFL's going through it right now with all of these back and forths in terms of disciplinary, the lawsuits taking place. But with Rashee Rice, again, total tinfoil theory here, T-Bone. The NFL can't have the Chiefs be bad early on in the season.
Yeah,
No?
No, I don't want to.
No tinfoil on that one?
I don't want to start.
No tinfoil on that one?
I don't want to start.
Just finding out if Rashee Rice then?
What is big for the Chiefs there? I mean, having him for those first 4 games, that's arguably their toughest 4-game stretch.
I was going to say, especially when you're talking about the Chargers and the Ravens.
Exactly.
Yeah,
2 AFC matchups.
So him potentially being available for those games, not being suspended, having to go through the hearing process, that is big for the Kansas City Chiefs because that is going to be their toughest stretch of the season. You know, depending on what it looks like and if he does get suspended, they've also got a block of Detroit, Washington, and Buffalo in a 4-week stretch. But, yeah, I mean, having him early on, hopefully get off to a fast start if you're the Kansas City Chiefs. Starting 3-1, which I would say is in the range of outcomes, even 4-0, honestly. I mean, they should beat the Chargers. They should beat the Giants. Philly and Baltimore are 2 toss-ups. Get off to that fast start. Then if you lose Rice to suspension for whatever games it might be, at least you're able to bank in some room there because they're a team that is – it's not about if they get to the playoffs. It's more of can they get that bye in the first round of the NFL
right.
playoffs.
You get a couple of weeks in. You start the season off hot. If he's gone, then you go through your struggles, and then he's back for you towards the end of the season. But again, September 30th, a disciplinary hearing for Rashee Rice with the NFL, and from there, they decide if he's going to get suspended, if he gets suspended. Tanner Hendrickson, Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up in 15 minutes, we're going to get back into the Cardinals because when you look at the second half offensive numbers for some of these players, it is confusing as all heck. And can we debunk the question of the Cardinals just being 1 star away? But we'll get to your questions next. 314-399-9646. Questions and answers next here on 101 ESPN.
It's an MLB weekend on ESPN. Saturday, Mets and Mariners. First pitch at 3:10. Then Sunday, it's Game 2. First pitch at 6:10. The MLB plays on 101 ESPN. picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. You've got questions, we may have the answers. Maybe. It's BK and Ferrario's questions and answers on 101 ESPN.
314-399-9646 Air Comfort Service text line. Also our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL. Head on over to the Graveyard Chat. Air Alliance team brings us our studio cams. Gators over there. Hal, Bill Marsh, everybody having conversations today. Let's start with this one from the 314. T-Bone, I listened to the Redbird Report. There you go.
Thank you.
How about that?
Sir, madam.
Is it possible that the Cardinals aren't bringing up Weatherholt or Matthews this year because they need to have something to sell to the fans for 2026 and can't afford for those guys to flop? I like where you're thinking negatively.
I like that question. I don't think it has anything to deal with 2026. And I think a lot of the fans, even if they didn't say you call them up this year, because I think this is what they're getting at there. If you call them up and they struggle in the final month and a half, I think that's just the process of learning at the big leagues. Like, I don't think any of us saw Masyn Winn in the final, whatever it was, month and a half, 40 games of 2023, and we're like, yeah, you know what? They sold us on another bad one. I think all of us looked at it and said, yeah, you know what? He's a kid. He's trying to learn how to hit major league pitching. At least he was able to get this experience and can learn from him in the offseason. So I don't think there's a downside to having them up here, and if they struggle, it's going to turn fans on them. I think a lot of fans will look at it and say, hey, first month and a half, he's learning. Okay, now let's go in the offseason. Now, if he struggles starting 2026, then that's when the fan base might start to kind of turn their heels a little bit.
If you flip it around, though, Tanner, yesterday, case in point, isn't that exactly why the start that Matthews had at AAA, why you would be more reluctant to actually bring him back into the fold? 3 innings, which we have seen consistently. Great, the 7 Ks, the 3 walks. He was actually hit around a bit yesterday in that win over Charlotte, but the fact of the matter is that the guy didn't get to pitch due to injury concerns from mid-April all the way through late May. So I'd like to see him continue to log those innings and not have to worry about the Major League club covering at this level, because if there's one thing we've consistently seen this season, it's been his inability. It's not about stuff, his inability to work even remotely deep into games.
From the 314, after listening to the Steve Ott interview yesterday, I have one question. How many more seasons is he going to be on the Blues bench before he is hired as a head coach? That was my biggest takeaway from that entire chat with Steve Ott was, how is this guy not a head coach yet? To me, I think Dallas screwed up not hiring Steve Ott this offseason when they moved on from, was it not Pete DeBoer? It was Pete DeBoer, right? Wasn't he the one that bashed his entire team? I'm blanking on that one. He says the right things. He's built the right relationships. He's won a Stanley Cup. He's been a part of winning teams. But here's the biggest thing. Teams want coaches that have experience. And Steve, as Curbs told us yesterday, he's never coached before. He's never been a head coach. But he has played for Ken Hitchcock. And he told us on the podcast, like, he is one of his biggest mentors. He's coached with Craig Berube, and he's coaching now with Jim Montgomery. Like, you want a resume of guys that I want my head coach to learn under? Berube, Montgomery, and Ken Hitchcock. If he's not a head coach now, which he's not going to be because teams have their head coaches, my guess is he will be a head coach somewhere after this season, if he wants to, because it comes down to him wanting to go and be a head coach.
Yeah, I think if Steve Ott wants to be a head coach, I think there's going to be an opportunity for him in the next couple of seasons, especially because, like, you look at the Blues, looks like they're about to enter their winning window. And whether this is right or wrong, a lot of teams will look at the assistant coach on winning teams and say, oh, that guy clearly must know what they're doing, so let's go out and hire that guy. I think you're probably year 2, maybe 3 before that happens. Now, it's probably not going to be a team that's contending, because that's the teams that typically do the whole recycle trend of going to guys that have been fired because they're trying to maximize their roster. I think wherever Steve Ott goes, it's probably going to have to be to a team that is in a rebuild or a retool, but I think he would do an excellent job with that. I mean, hearing him on your guys' podcast, it's clear he's got great relationship with all of the players, and he can talk with them because he's been through it, right? He was a player. He was a guy that played a gritty style, so he can communicate with all of them. Yeah,
depending on what happens with Dallas this year, bold prediction, if Dallas struggles, it's because they didn't get the right coach for behind their bench. Let's do a couple more of these. From the 618, guys, you talk about it all the time. How would you define a, quote, star player? I mean, it is kind of a personal judgment off of a star. To me, a star player is the guy that when he's got an opportunity to change the game, he comes through. Like, consistently, you expect him to come through for your team. And that goes anywhere. Like, if you want to talk baseball, like, I view a lot of guys that are clutch in clutch moments as star players. In hockey, guys that can score a goal on a breakaway when it's a tie hockey game or make the right play, those are star players to me. It doesn't have to be the superstar, the guy that gets paid hundreds of millions of dollars. If you're a player who is big in big moments, to me, that defines a star player. And consistently is the other part of it.
Yeah, I would say the things for me that I would call for a star, one would be what you're saying there is he can come through. Like, when he comes to the plate or the puck is on his stick. Like, every time Connor McDavid touches the puck in a game, when you're at the arena or if you're watching the game on television, you just feel like he's going to do something. Right? And if you're an Oilers fan, that's great. If you're a Blues fan, holy crap, McDavid's got the puck on his stick.
Yeah.
Same with Draisaitl, guys like that. I think the other thing, too, is do I want to go watch them play? Are they the reason I'm going to the ballpark? Like, for example, I'm going to the Cardinals game tomorrow night as a fan. I'm not going to watch a Cardinals player. I'm going because Aaron Judge is coming to town.
Yeah.
I want to watch Aaron Judge play baseball. So that's the other thing. And then depending on the sport, I don't know if I think there is a defined mark at the NHL now, is a 90-point to 100-point player. I think in baseball, your stars, hitting-wise, are typically your 30 homers, 100 RBI guy. I think there are some stat lines that you can look at and say, okay, did that guy hit 30 home runs and drive in 100 RBIs? Aaron Judge, yeah, he did it. Do I feel great when he comes to play? No, I'm terrified that he's going to hit another one of those home runs. Also, I want to go watch him play. So I think those are the things for me when I think about, okay, what makes this player a star?
Yeah, somebody texted in and said that's far from a star. Stars are well-known and popular. Yes, and I think some can view stars differently than others, but I also think there's a different criteria than star. It's superstar. And Aaron Judge is a superstar.
Yeah.
And I think guys can be stars, but to me, before you're a star, it's got to be consistent. It's got to be something that I expected out of you every single season.
Yeah, like Kyle Tucker is star, Aaron Judge is superstar.
Yes.
And that's not to take anything away from Kyle Tucker because he's having a great year, even though the Cubs want to run him out of town now. He's got an 842 OPS. He's 44% above league average. But Kyle Tucker's not as well known a name. And he also does more of the Goldie type where he is more business. He's not flashy, but he's just really good at baseball. And that's also the thing that kind of helps deviate him to the star
Kyle
category.
Schwarber is a star. Bryce Harper is a superstar.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that's just...
Schwarber might be actually working his way up to superstar, but yeah.
It might be. Like, you go to the games to see something like that, but like that's how I kind of view these criterias. And the guy that's below the star is just I don't even know how you would frame that one, but role player, complimentary player, like that's where I feel like the Cardinals have a lot of them. They don't have that star. And
nice accent piece.
I don't know if I'd say accent piece because I when I think star,
role player might be the better way to frame it.
I would call like a role player like a Newt Bar or a Jake Neighbors. No offense, Jake.
I think that's probably where he's at too.
But when I'm trying to find like superstar is the guy like when I'm another team, like he truly makes me pee down my leg. I am so terrified of him. There is no way to game plan for him. Like someone on the text line brought up, Holiday was a star, Pujols was a superstar. We had, I think it was Jim Bowden on a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. I remember Jim Bowden saying, like, you were terrified to play the Cardinals because there was, like, no way to get Albert Pujols out.
Right.
So you just felt terrified every time he stepped to the plate. Holiday was a really good player and was a star. You could find a way to get Holiday out. And so they were guys that you had to game plan for. They did worry you, but they didn't feel like they were going to just swing of the bat really change the game like Albert Pujols could. Yeah. I hope that kind of deviates it a little bit.
I think that's kind of where we're all at with this one, which does segue great into our next segment because the second half offensive numbers have not looked good for the Cardinals. What does that all mean? And are the Cardinals a star away from getting this ship righted? We'll discuss that next year on BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Get social with 101 ESPN. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, Threads, Blue Sky, and YouTube at 101 ESPN.
WXOS, WXOS HD1 East St. Louis. 101 ESPN is driven by Auto Centers Nissan, home of the lifetime warranty and 30-day return. We want to hear from you. Use the Scott Lee Mic Drop feature on the 101 mobile app. Give us your opinion on anything St. Louis sports with a mic drop.
Brought to you by the Scott Lee Heating Company.
Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. The Cardinals off today. They'll be back at it tomorrow night as they welcome in Aaron Judge and the New York Yankees for what is probably going to be the final exciting home series of the season.
Well, we have the Pirates coming to town for...
I guess get the Brewers in late September if you want to go down that path. But by that time, it might not be too pretty for the Cardinals.
You're not playing for the division then?
Nope. I think that's changed after that series loss to the Colorado Rockies. They lose yesterday 6-5.
The division disappeared a long time ago.
They lose 2 of 3 against the Rockies. They lose the season series against the Rockies. But more importantly, the offense has just completely dried up in the second half of the season. And we talked about this with Ollie earlier this week, talking about that this is baseball. A lot of these guys are learning to be pros. But, man, T-Bone, when you look at the second half numbers for a lot of these guys, some of them have been consistently great. Wilson Contreras has been what you'd expect him to be. He's been one of the best hitters for this team. Masyn Winn has been hitting the ball. The slug's not there, but he's been hitting the ball very well. But then you look at it, and 2 of the best hitters on your team in the second half have been Jordan Walker, who's hitting .284 with 7 extra base hits and 8 RBI. Nolan Gorman, who's hitting .258, where he's got a home run, he's got a double, 5 RBI. Now, the defense hasn't been very pretty. And on the flip side of that, Herrera has struggled, Burleson has struggled, and Brendan Donovan has struggled. So the early portion of the season, the guys that have been carrying your team, all-star caliber players in Brendan Donovan and Alec Burleson and Ivan Herrera, have gone quiet when the 2 pieces that have been the biggest question marks, where I think a lot of people were done with by the All-Star break, have been 2 of your best hitters coming out of the All-Star break. The second half numbers doesn't give you a whole lot of optimism, but I really don't know how to read into this one for the Cardinals.
Yeah, it's weird because I feel like I should be happy, right? I look at Jordan Walker and go, it's finally clicking.
We did it!
We finally might be seeing Jordan Walker get to where I thought he was going to be, 2 years ago when I said give that guy a contract extension after his great rookie year. Nolan Gorman, I think Gorman is just one of those guys where we've talked about this. He goes through ebbs and flows. When he's hot, he's wow. When he's cold, it's, oh my God, get that guy out of the lineup. So I don't know what to make of his second half surge. So JC's been nice. So JC's 22% above league average in terms of WRC plus here in the second half. So it's nice to see him kind of figure it out after having a little bit of a rough stretch. But you would think when I read you read those numbers off, you'd think, okay, this feels good. Masyn Winn is hitting for the high average, as you mentioned. Okay, we should be happy, right? and then I look and I go, Burley's only 4% above league average, and really that got bumped up by his home run yesterday, where he really boosted his OPS over 700. But prior to yesterday, his numbers were down, and he was below league average in the second half, which is a little alarming because that was a big concern for him last year. Remember, last year he really fell off of a cliff in the second half. Ivan Herrera, his numbers are fine. He's 5% below league average. He's not hitting for any power, which is something that is worth monitoring for the final month and a half of this season, because I don't know if you agree with this. Herrera, I would say, is the one guy that I hope could maybe have that star power bat in here for the St. Louis Cardinals.
Yeah.
Well, if you're going to be a star, you have to hit for power.
And you have to be consistent.
Yeah. And you got to exactly. You got to do it consistently. You got to have a high slugging percentage. And he's only slugging in the second half so far, .337. Now, some of this can change because technically the way that they break down the second half on Fangraphs is they start it from the All-Star break. So maybe it's still small sample size and we'll see these numbers get back to normal. But Herrera and Burleson are the 2 guys that I'm watching in the final part of this season, the final month and a half, because I want to see if Burley can avoid the second half lull that he ran into last year. And Ivan Herrera is a guy that, okay, I really like what we see here. I love the fact that he hits for high average. I want to start to see more damage done from Ivan Herrera's bat.
Yeah, and to me, that, I guess, would be the concern if I look at these first half versus second half numbers. Other than Herrera, because We still really haven't seen it because last year wasn't a full sample size. This is really the first full 162-game schedule he's going to play, and he had the injury early on. But Burleson was this last year, where he was one of the best hitters on the team in the first half, very quiet in the second half. And I could make the argument of like, yeah, he just realized what it took to be a 162-game player, and he's figuring that out still. But back-to-back years of it, are you just becoming a first-half guy? Brendan Donovan isn't a first-half versus second-half guy. It's just he's been injured in the past, but he's always consistent for you.
Yeah, and Donnie, I don't know about you. The reason I'm not overly concerned about his second half is because he had this injury where it was a toe that led to a groin. Right. So I think that's maybe where this comes. Now, if he struggles again for the next month, then it's
we
a
can
different
talk
conversation.
about it. But then the other guys, like, look, Lars Nootbaar was a runway player. I think I know what Lars Nootbaar is. You're a half of a season guy, which isn't a bad thing to have. But you can't be a liability in the half that matters the most. And then Jordan Walker, depending on what this looks like, I think you're only a half a season guy, although there's still some work to be done. Nolan Gorman, to me, you're a streaky guy. You're not a start to finish season. So it doesn't provide me a whole lot of optimism because all of these guys that I thought were going to be dudes have now become, you're just kind of a half season player and I need you for the full season, or at least I need you at the best part of the season.
Yeah, run of the mill. And I do think there is some concern as well, Tanner, about Brendan Donovan as well. But let me preface it by saying I understand the gamut of injuries. You have somebody who's posting each and every day. Let's talk about viability, though, as maybe a long-term answer there at leadoff. Because a few weeks ago on this very show, the primary premise, the biggest objective, one of our goals leading up to the trade deadline was talking about whether basically you retain, you hang on to a couple of additional years of peak performance from a Brendan Donovan, or do you potentially dangle him out there? And guys, this is much more than just a small sample size when we're talking about what Donnie has produced or lack thereof since the All-Star break, okay? So many of the different statistics that you guys outlined, the middle of the order, the lower portion of the order, it's because you don't have somebody, the catalyst right now, producing in the same vein at the top of the order. When you're talking about going 16 for 79, when you're talking about a 202 average and only having drawn 6 walks as well, it is a trickle-down effect because as much as we want to cite, oh, hey, there's a nice batting average so far in the second half from a Nolan Gorman. Oh, Jordan Walker, he's producing accordingly as well. Why aren't you seeing the run-producing numbers? It's because we haven't seen anything at the top.
So that leads us to the conversation that we had in questions and answers, because my belief over the last couple of years has been, man, you're just missing that star. You're missing that middle of the order bat that gives everybody the sigh of, okay, I could just go out and do my thing. This guy's going to take care of the rest. But T-Bone, you dug deeper into those numbers, and it might not be one guy fixes all for the Cardinals.
Yeah, I last night was curious, and again, you can't really do this, but I was curious by what the numbers would say. If, okay, we would call Kyle Tucker a star, right? I think we agree on that. Kyle Tucker, a star, not a superstar.
Not a superstar, but a star.
Let me tell you, if you put Aaron Judge in this lineup, everything looks a lot better. Because I ran those numbers and was like, whoa.
You put Bryce Harper in here, I'm excited to go to the ballpark.
But the reason I decided to do Tucker, because at times early on in the season when the offense was clicking, we would look at the lineup and we'd watch them play the Cubs and we'd say, man, if they just had a star, this team would maybe be where the Cubs are. And the more I've watched the offense, the more I've started to question, okay, is one star enough?
Started to not believe it anymore.
Yeah, I've started to think, okay, they might need more than just a star. They probably need 2. So I decided last night to run the numbers and take Kyle Tucker from the Cubs. And let's just say that the Cardinals made that trade in the offseason. The Cubs never do it. Kyle Tucker's here, and he is taking the spot of Lars Nootbaar.
Hell yeah,
Nootbaar
Cardinals.
is gone.
Got
Nootbaar
him.
was a part of that trade, and let's say whatever else pieces went. But that was the only offensive piece that you plucked, and Tucker is your starting left fielder. What are you doing over there?
The phone just went off on me.
What are you watching?
No, it went off on me. My Ring doorbell just went off.
Sounded like a dinosaur.
Yeah. But so I replaced Nootbaar with Kyle Tucker. And real quick, the numbers for the Cardinals right now. 249 average, 15th in baseball. 319 on base, 15th in baseball. 386 slug, 24th in baseball. If you put Kyle Tucker and his season numbers here in place of in place of Lars Nootbaar, Cardinals would have a 253 batting average, which would tie them for 8th in baseball, so it bumps up.
Okay.
325 on base, which would be 6th in baseball. What I found interesting about this is their slugging percentage. It would be higher, but it did not jump up into the top 10 like I was expecting. and this goes to show you how much power they are lacking throughout this
Right.
lineup, not just with the star. If you add Kyle Tucker to this lineup, their slugging percentage would be .404, which would be 15th in Major League Baseball, tied right around with the Baltimore Orioles. And all playoff teams are top 15 except for one when it comes to looking at the playoff field right now in terms of slugging percentage, and that's the San Diego Padres. But their lineup is starting to play a little bit better in the second half. So I looked at that and I said, man, this kind of fit into the idea that I was kind of toying with in my head of, is one star really enough? Is it just as simple as, hey, if you put in a Kyle Tucker in here, all of a sudden everything is fixed and the Cardinals are going to be that team that can get the offense back to where it was or be a consistent lineup? It helps. They might be able to be a wild card team with that. Yeah, I think it would be 50-50. And the reason, like right now, I would lean it wouldn't be because you don't have the pitching to go with it. So, but the offense, I still think would have some inconsistencies. I don't think it'd be as bad as we've seen here in the second half, where their numbers are just atrocious since you dig back to June 1st. But I don't know if a star it would be enough. I think you've got to get back to the point where they were, 3 years ago, where it was 2 stars, Goldie and Arenado, or even when it was Goldie and Ozuna. At least you had 2 middle-of-the-order bats, and I wouldn't call Ozuna a star, but that was the idea behind it. I think you need 2 of them. I don't think 1 is enough. And now we've been talking about, like, where do they get their start? Dude, where are they getting 2 of them? Like, where is that coming from for the St. Louis Cardinals if they're planning this whole draft and development thing?
And this is the hard part because, like, you can't do this, but just in my mind, I do wonder mentally if a player like Kyle Tucker is here, if it makes everyone else slightly better. Not turning them around to become star-level players, but does it take the pressure off of guys like Donovan, or although Donovan seems like he handles the pressure well, it's just he's hitting a wall. Does it take the pressure off of a Burleson? Does it take the pressure off of a Walker to where they slightly tick north with their play because that guy in the middle makes everything a little bit easier, and now you see the offense maybe become closer to a top 10. But I think you're right, T-Bone. Like, even with Kyle Tucker, you still haven't fixed the slug problem. The average in the on-base percentage has gotten better, but you still don't have the pitching. So as much as I think, you're only a star away from this one, an elite bat would make a difference. But an elite bat only makes you a wild card team. And to get back to that level where you're a playoff team, to what Ollie has mentioned of I want to be a team that knows you're going to win a game every single night, that's Kyle Tucker plus. And if the Cardinals aren't willing to spend money on Kyle Tucker, imagine trying to develop 2 of those guys or 3 of those guys, which is why this offseason becomes so pivotal in terms of turning some of these inconsistent complementary pieces into potentially something that becomes the star, so it opens up the window of possibilities for the Cardinals moving forward. Tanner Hendrickson, Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up in 15 minutes, we're going to talk a little bit about Masyn Winn because, boy, has he been elite, but it's only been on one side of the baseball field. I want to ask about the other. But coming up next, what's the biggest lurking question for the Blues this upcoming season? Because I think I have one that ties into for the here and now and the future. We'll discuss that, and if the Blues have something that strikes fear into their opponents next on 101 ESPN.
Be a part of the show. Text the Air Comfort Service Heating, Cooling, and Insulation text line at 314-399-9646 on 101 ESPN. 101 ESPN has your chance to win a 4-pack of tickets to the 2025 SMX World Championship Playoffs. Saturday, September 13th at the Dome at America's Center. The Dome at America's Center will see playoff supercross racing for the first time, featuring the premier riders in the world putting it all on the line for the World Championship title.
Experience the intense racing of the world's most demanding sport live. Get all the info and register to score that free 4-pack of tickets for the 2025 SMX World Championship Playoffs. Now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app.
This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
So as we were coming up with some topics for today's show, because this might surprise a lot of people, but boy, when the Cardinals aren't good, there's just not a whole lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
Got to get creative at this time of the year. And T-Bone saw something over on ESPN that was talking about the lurking questions for NBA teams with the upcoming season.
We're talking ball, baby.
So we are getting into some hoops. What's the biggest lurking question for the Knicks? Bradford, go.
Okay, well, I'll have to tell you, given the fact that Tom Thibodeau was released from his contract, Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart,
we're not really doing that.
We're not doing that. We're getting into the biggest lurking questions for the Blues, because I have one that kind of ties into the here and now, but also the future for St. Louis. Is there more? What's the ceiling for this defensive core? And my thought process with this is, okay, so the offense that you have developed in terms of acquired talent and what's coming through the pipeline, whether it's Dvorsky and the Stenberg, you have built a bigger offensive group of players, guys that thrive in front of the net, guys that have the ability to skate fast, but also can shoot off of the rush. You saw that development last year with Holloway and Kyrou versus how Thomas and Buchnevich, and then with that depth of Jake Neighbors, and now you add in Bukestad and Suter. But the reason I ask about the defense is for the now tied into Logan Mailloux, because does this guy have the top pair potential that we've heard about when they acquired him from Montreal, or is it just a fringe player that's a big question mark? But for the future is, does this defense continue to develop to become a dual threat on the ice? Because in the minor league system, you still have this Lindstein that they're pretty high on, Jiricek. There's a couple of other kids that they're pretty excited to see what they look like with this upcoming training camp. But does that upside have offensive ability tied into the defense? Because Fowler's not getting any younger, could potentially be gone after this season. Parayko's not getting any younger. Falk's probably gone after this season. And now you're talking about offense from the defense coming from Broberg, talking about Mailloux, still Parayko, and some younger pieces. And when you've got big bodies that play physical, that like to go to the front of the net like Jim Montgomery has preferred, the long-term lurking question that I have is, do you have a defense that not only can be good in their own end, but also find ways to get pucks on net? Because your offense is only going to thrive if your defense can maintain puck possession in the zone and find ways to find the net. And that's a big question mark with some of these players.
Yeah, I really like that, and especially on the offensive side, because what does it look like if it kind of regresses almost more back to what I would call the norm? Like, what if Cam Fowler isn't
Sorry, you did that one.
I know. I was kind of like...
I'm not going to gloss over that because we do that here in BK and Ferrario.
I'm not really sure what happened
We
there.
point out your flaws.
Played in Anaheim, Tanner.
Cam Fowler last year was really good for the Blues when he got here. I mean, it was unbelievable. Then you look at what he did in the playoffs. You want to talk about remarkable.
Oh, yeah.
That was something special that we were able to see from him in the playoffs. Is he going to regress a little bit more back to the norm? I'm not saying he's going to go back and be what he was in Anaheim right before they acquired him, but is it possible that we see a little bit less from him? Is it possible that Broberg is not a 30-point guy, Parayko's not a 16-goal scorer? And if that's the case, what does that mean for them? What if Fowler and Parayko are not 36-point guys and they are more in that 25 to 20 range this upcoming season? What does that look like for the Blues? Now, I think their forwards now are much better suited to take on a little bit more if the defense does regress offensively. Defensively, I don't know if I have the same question marks about him, because like Broberg was really good defensively last year. Falk was okay. Mailloux's probably the biggest question mark, but if he's your third pair guy,
if we're talking about your third pair being a question mark, you're fine.
Yeah, I'm not overly concerned about that. I think the biggest lurking question for the Blues, and it's something I don't think they can honestly get the answer this year. It is one that is going to take probably a couple of years. Is Snuggurud the top line winger that you're looking to pair with Robert Thomas?
That's a good one.
because it's the number one thing that they've had been missing. Kyrou was in that role, and we would talk about it, but as we talked about a little bit earlier when we were talking about the Cardinals offense and, just pieces, there's good pieces, but they're a little bit misplaced. They're in the wrong spots right now. That was what Kyrou was when he was up there with Robert Thomas. Can Jimmy Snuggurud be that guy? And that's something that you're not going to get a definitive answer on this year. That is more of a 2 to 3 years down the road. Is Snuggurud going to be that elite top-line winger that this team is missing to put with Robert Thomas? The guy that can go out there, be the 30, 35-goal scorer, brings the elite shot to the power play, but also brings, I wouldn't say it has to be elite defense, but it's still very responsible defensively, because if you're going to be with Robert Thomas, you are going to be paired with some of the best matchups, or some of the toughest matchups across the NHL. Buchnevich, good two-way forward. Snuggurud, can he be that for you while also being a guy that can score 30 goals? I think that is their biggest lurking question ahead, along with what's their plan in goaltending wise when you get to the end of the Binnington contract. That one I'm less worried about. To me, it's that elite winger. Do you finally have that internally in Jimmy Snuggurud? You're not going to find that out this year, because I think you got to give him some time. I think in 2 years, though, that's where they're going to have that answer.
Yeah, well, and why I think that's such a good topic to bring up is you're also kind of handcuffed in terms of there's nobody in your system that profiles that anymore. Like, I know people are excited about this Justin Carbonneau that they just drafted. To me, you're still a couple of years away from that, and
he screams
middle six guy, that potential upside.
Yeah, I was going to say he screams like Jake Neighbors with some upside.
Exactly, and Dvorsky's not it. Dvorsky at best is a second-line center for you. He's not a top-line winger that could be a difference maker. Like, Snuggurud's it in your system. Now, you still have Holloway, who probably is it, and maybe he moves into that role if Snuggurud's not. But then you get into the category of you're going to have to go pay for that, and that costs a lot of money. So I think it's a really good one, because it's been their biggest problem when Buchnevich hasn't been viewed that way. Because when Buch kind of had a quieter last couple of seasons, it's been, okay, well, you just paid that $8.5 million, and he might not be a top-line winger. So I think Snuggurud's a really good one. And then this one from the 314 ties into the goalie one, T-Bone. My biggest question is Hofer better than Binnington? Because if he's here, if he's not yet, he's damn close, and we could have a legitimate star on our hands in the next 3 years or so. I don't know if to me, that's not a lurking question beyond this season, because he's going to be a good goaltender for you. And you won't know if he's a good playoff goaltender until you get there. And you're not going to get there until you decide to move past Binnington. Because if you get to the playoffs when Binnington's under contract, Binnington's the guy starting. No, you're not doing that. Last time you did that, you regretted it.
Sorry, I'm going to go with Binnington.
I thought you meant Hofer. And I'm like, last time you did that, the guy was moved out of St. Louis because he couldn't perform in the playoffs. Anyway.
That's still unfair.
It was. But although I don't know if it's a lurking question for me, I think it's the biggest fear factor that other teams have of the Blues.
I am curious with Hofer, and I don't want to say it's like a fork in the road season for him, because I asked this of our friend Mike McKenna a couple weeks ago. Like, is there a Blue that has a fork in the road season ahead? Like for the Cardinals, it was kind of that year for Nootbaar, right? For Lars Nootbaar, it was, hey, are you a guy that can take the next step and be a part of the core, or is this who you are? And if that's the case, do you fit into our long-term plans?
Right.
I don't think that's necessarily where Hofer is, but I do find him in an interesting spot, because last year, the numbers were good. 904 save percentage, 2.64 goals against average, which was right in line with what he was the year prior. In 31 games, 28, 16, and 8. But I look at him and I still say, okay, the Blues clearly view you potentially as the guy that could take over for Binnington when the contract is up for Benner in 2 years. That's why they kind of matched up the contracts in his recent extension. I still don't get like the comfy, cozy feeling when I see Hofer in the net. Sometimes, because it feels like he is very streaky. Now, that's most goalies, but
I think he led the league last year in terms of goals scored on the first shot of the game.
Yeah, that's not great.
No.
That. You want to talk about
had that?
No, never.
Yeah, who's so struggled from that for some reason?
That can't be real. But he's the one that I look at and I go, it's not a fork in the road, but I do want to see more of the, I do view him more of a number one. Because right now, to me, he clearly is a 2. And that's not a shot to him. You need a really good backup goaltender. But if you're going to kind of talk about him as potentially being the guy that takes over for Benner and waiting, this is the year that I really got to start to see that and feel more comfortable with him in between the pipes.
Yeah, I think, Alex, as I was going to say, doesn't so much of it have to do with the way in which, as far as how you're viewing Hofer last season, basically the philosophy, the game plan was to attempt to get Hofer more of those starts in the early going against some upper echelon competition. It didn't work out. Bannister was at the helm at that time. You sort of deviated from the expected plan. We were supposed to have seen Hofer more early last season. Now, that didn't come to fruition. But this year, this coming season, given all the different variables here, you're talking about obviously an extended break they're in. It would make that much more sense. And if you are able to build that confidence early on, you're able to see Hofer going up against these grade A level squads. Having that sort of success against those squads, maybe it comes one season later than you had thought, but that's what a lot of people need to see, I believe.
Well, and you're going to see that this year. Because of the Olympics, you're going to see more games for him and bigger games for him early on.
And that might be why I'm having this conversation of where it kind of feels like a fork in the road. Not so much of if you're a Blue in the future or not, but, okay, can you get to that number one level? Is because I am expecting him to play in more games early on this season.
And the biggest, and I think you're going to have the question with him for the next 2 years, barring an injury, because you won't see Hofer in the playoffs, because Binnington will be the playoff guy until his contract is up. And at that point, you're going to have to decide, okay, does regular season translate to postseason, and can we thrive off of that? Or when you're getting to your winning window, does Binnington still get those postseason reps, and does he make a difference for you? And that's going to be a fascinating decision that they're going to have to make. And I think that's the advantage that the Blues are going to have this year, is a goalie tandem that they feel comfortable with using both guys, and no matter the situation, at least in the regular season. Tanner Hendrickson, Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up at 15, we'll get into the junk drawer, but coming up next, Masyn Winn is having a Gold Glove season. But what does that mean in terms of him tied into the Cardinals core? We'll discuss that and more next here on 101 ESPN.
Sign up to play fantasy football with Adam Wainwright, Lars Nootbaar, and others during Big League Impact's 2025 fantasy football season. Help support some awesome charitable causes handpicked by the participating players. And show off your fantasy skills with the chance to win a variety of prizes. Space is limited.
You can find all the details on how to sign up for Big League Impact's 2025 fantasy football season now at 101ESPN.com.
Zone, where sports betting meets reckless optimism, questionable logic, and the occasional stroke of genius. With hosts Anthony Stalter, Tim McKernan, and Scott Rizzuto. Check out the latest from the Spread Zone at 101ESPN.com or the 101 mobile app. The Spread Zone is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Colorado claims come from behind victory. Good afternoon. I'm Bradford Bruns. This Sports Center update is powered by Saliga Heating and Cooling. The Cardinals are off today before opening a 3-game series against Aaron Judge's Yankees. About 20 hours ago, though, misfortune abounded at Busch Stadium. Hunter Goodman's 9th-inning homer helping his Rockies prevail 6-5. Lefty Jojo Romero saddled with that loss. Right now, Baltimore and Seattle just getting underway. Later, Max Scherzer's Blue Jays host second-place Chicago, and El Central leading Milwaukee also finds itself idle. Your Sports Center update was presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
Take Masyn Winn, who's having a last several weeks after the All-Star break, he's done a really nice job. Yeah. I think where he's at compared to his ceiling isn't close. Like, we have a really, really good player on our hands. And he's only going to get better as far as how he approaches certain at-bats and when he picks his spots to go pull side, when he uses other way, his two-strike, like all of it. But he has the ability to do everything. And someday he will, but the ceiling is super high, and we're nowhere close to it.
That's Oli Marmol, Cardinals manager, when he was on with BK and Ferrario earlier this week, along with Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. Masyn Winn right now has 2 errors on the season, which is one of the best in Major League Baseball. His outs above average is tops in Major League Baseball with 22, and his defensive WAR, this is all from Derek Gould, is set to be the best Cardinals infielder since Scott Rowland. And that resonates for me because Scott Rowland was my favorite player growing up. Watching him at third base was unreal. But so is Masyn Winn right now at shortstop. He has been the best shortstop in the National League this season without question defensively. The offense has been consistent, but it hasn't been at the level that you look at and you're like, hot damn, this guy has been incredible. But based off of defense alone, T-Bone, we've been talking about the Cardinals core all season long, deciding if certain Cardinals players have put themselves in pen or permanent marker as, yep, that guy is a member of the Cardinals core moving forward. Has Masyn Winn's defensive play this season made it as the overall player is a core member of this team moving forward?
Yeah, I find him fascinating when it gets to the offseason for Chaim Bloom because he is a really good player. I mean, you mentioned his defensive numbers. I mean, he's putting up an incredible season. He should win the Gold Glove at shortstop. He might even be in the conversation for the Platinum Glove this year in the National League.
Real quick, Derek Gould put this one out. Since 2000 per Fangraphs, a list of Cardinals with defensive runs replacement of 19 or higher. Yadier Molina did it 8 times, Scott Rowland, Masyn Winn, and Brendan Ryan.
Yeah, well, wow.
Wow. It's kind of what I was thinking.
One of these guys is not like the other. But
anyway, go ahead.
But, I mean, that goes to show you the elite category he's been in defensively with Brendan Ryan as well. But I look at Masyn Winn and I go, man, that is such a great piece to have because I still think there's more to his bat. I still don't know what the ceiling is on him. The most encouraging thing for me is it just hasn't fallen off of a cliff. Remember I think it was on opening day when we were down at Ballpark Village, one of my T-bone threes for one of my bold predictions into the season was Masyn Winn would continue the sophomore slump trend for the St. Louis Cardinals. Mm-hmm. And he got off to a little bit of a rough start, but he settled back into about where he was last year. I mean, you look at it. Average 267 last year, 264 this year. His on base is up by 5 points. Slug is down by a decent amount. I think part of that's been he was been dealing with nagging knee injury. I think he had a back issue, if I remember correctly, early on in the year. His WRC plus 104, so 4% above league average last year. It's 99, 1% below league average this year. He hasn't fallen off of a cliff offensively, which is encouraging, which makes me still think as he gets older and matures in the game here at the major league level, he's only 23 years old. Next year will be his age 24 season. it makes me still dream on his bat. Now, when I say dream on his bat, I'm not saying you have Francisco Lindor suddenly popping up here.
Now, that's a dream right there.
Oh, that would be a superstar.
That's a dream.
I don't think that's probably in the range of outcomes, but I do think he can maybe get to being a 10 to 20% above league average player, get to where Nootbaar was at one point, because Nootbaar was a guy that was about 20% above league average. And if you get that from a guy that provides Gold Glove level defense at the shortstop position, that's a guy that a lot of teams would love to have.
Well, the good news is, if you look at Brendan Ryan's numbers when he was that elite defensively, he's not going to be Brendan Ryan, because Brendan Ryan was like a 76 OPS plus. So, like, you don't have to worry about that one. But
I remember him as a leadoff hitter.
I remember him getting lit up by Chris Carpenter. That's what I remember about Brendan Ryan. The part that I have struggled with Masyn Winn, and I brought this up to you guys in the office, is what's the difference between Masyn Winn and Harrison Bader? And here's my thought process behind it.
Throws hard?
Position. I thought Bader threw hard from center field, right?
Not like this.
Harrison Bader, in the year prior to him winning his Gold Glove and the year of him winning his Gold Glove. Now, age is the difference here, because Bader was 26 and 27, and right now Masyn Winn's 23 years old. But Bader offensively had a 258 batting average, 327 on base, 457 slugs, 784 OPS, and was 14% above league average in OPS plus. Masyn Winn, there's still some games to be played, but as it stands right now, 266 batting average, 316 on base, 402 slugs, 718 OPS, and he's only 1% above league average OPS plus, 101. As much as I love the elite defense and love my Gold Glovers specifically at that position, he's not the guy that I look at and I say he's going to fix the issues of the Cardinals. Now, he solves a problem for you. But my worry is if this is who he is offensively and there's no more upside, which is just premature being concerned about something. But defenses first doesn't fix the problem for the Cardinals, and they still need a lot more offense. And does Masyn Winn bring you back something better in return versus having that player at shortstop and trading other pieces elsewhere? That's the part that I don't know the answer to.
That is the really fascinating debate here. It's the internal question, because you mentioned, Alex, the particular position on the diamond. And to me, with all due respect to a Harrison Bader, and I'm not even saying right now that the wheels for a Masyn Winn offensively match up to what we saw from Bader. That's neither here nor there. But I do think that you can look at and evaluate possible linchpin players on your roster when that individual has an exceptionally elite skill. And that is Winn. To me, because of the position at which he plays at shortstop, I do assign more value to that in particular. And again, this is no referendum there on Bader, but when you're telling me that you are that much above the rest of the competition at that position, and you also are capable of maybe demonstrating more growth in the area of hitting gap to gap, he is second once again on this squad in doubles. And there are so many different things you still have yet to see. That first stretch in the major leagues did drag down some of those offensive numbers to a degree. So I am willing, actually, Tanner, to bank on a little more in the way of upside and just continued time to see what else you can extract from him, because first and foremost, he is that great.
The only reason I brought up Bader was because I remember the talk about Bader when he was going through that was like, holy bleep, this guy is the center field. This is the core piece of this team moving forward.
Yeah, and the tough part for Bader, and I mean, it's a pretty good comp for where they are, because I could totally see Winn settling in and being like Harrison Bader, about a league average.
Which is a great player to have.
Yeah, and he'll settle in. There are a couple years. I mean, you look at Bader this year, that spring chicken at 31 years old in Minnesota was 12% above league average, and was a guy that ended up getting traded at the trade deadline. Philadelphia valued his defense. Yeah. He hasn't hit since he's gotten there, but they valued him and wanted to acquire him. I could totally see where Masyn Winn gets to that spot offensively. I agree with what Bradford said, though. He does play a more premier position and at the shortstop position, and they don't have anybody internally.
No.
I know
Weatherholt is not that.
I know Weatherholt plays shortstop. You're not going to get that kind of defense from Weatherholt. Is not my expectation.
And this
Maybe he surprises me.
Too.
Well, Mo valued. This is what makes this so interesting on Masyn Winn. I don't know about Heim Bloom. That guy had Xander Bogaerts playing shortstop in Boston. Now, think about that. Xander Bogaerts was not a good defensive shortstop. So that's what makes this interesting. The one thing that makes me feel maybe a little more hopeful on Winn's ceiling, I just went and looked at Bader's numbers. Remember, he always struggled against the breaking ball sliders, where his biggest thing couldn't hit him. Never really had a good year against the breaking ball here in St. Louis. always around a 200 hitter against breaking stuff. Masyn Winn is slightly better, 245 last year, 233 this year. He slugged a little bit better against breaking balls last year than he did this year. So my hope is that pitch isn't going to become a thing. That is a problem for him.
Yeah.
But, I go to this text from the 618. I'm not going to shout it. It was all caps, but I'm going to
use tone.
Yeah, I think, there's definitely tone in it. But I'm not going to scream it at the top of my lungs.
Okay, don't.
618. You don't trade even good players, Tanner. Not at a premier position. He's only 23, 5 exclamation points.
Why do I feel like I've heard that
a lot?
Answer from Cardinals for the last 5 years in all caps?
Exactly.
For Carlson, for O'Neill, for all of these guys, Jordan Walker, Nolan Gorman, all of these guys, I heard that in my head.
Yeah, and the reason I read that text is because, yes, I don't want to trade good players, but to get great players, I've got to trade good players.
Yep.
And if you want a superstar, and look, I don't think they're at this spot in their organization, which is probably what's going to lead to them hanging on to Masyn Winn, and the fact that he is a really good player. That's the kind of guy that can go out there and acquire you some pretty good pieces, because Masyn Winn is going to have a lot of value. Any team across baseball would love a 23-year-old shortstop that is a Gold Glove caliber defender and can potentially bet on his offense. The Cardinals are in the midst of a rebuild, and they're going to have to pick and choose between a couple of pieces to try and figure out who's part of the core, who's not, who can get us the best in return to potentially accelerate this thing so we are good within the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, somebody said it sounds very familiar to what the Cardinals fans were screaming about Dylan Carlson. Yeah, maybe that's the part that I heard in my head. There is one other thing on the Cardinals side that I wanted to get to, because I saw this on social media. Chip Carey was talking about what the Cardinals need this offseason, and he brought up how the Cardinals need to go find their Nick Markakis. He said, I think this is something that I hope Heimblum goes after in the offseason. I think it would be really, really helpful. And citing that it's a player that brings in offense, but also a player that can guide some of their younger players. I think Chip Carey's incredible at what he does, and I love him. Is that what the Cardinals need? Because isn't that what the Cardinals have been doing for the last 5 years? Didn't they go out there and get their Nick Markakis and Paul Goldschmidt? Didn't they go get their Nick Markakis and Nolan Arenado? Didn't they go get their Nick Markakis and Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson and Miles Michaelis and Matt Carpenter and Brandon Crawford? They've been doing this, of going to get that guy that just brings a different element to the locker room, the clubhouse, that can bring along some of these younger players. Now, Markakis was a really good player when he was in Atlanta, but I don't think that's the reason why the Atlanta Braves became a winning factory. It was because they were developing talent in terms of Acuna and why am I blanking on their third baseman's name? Austin Riley and Ozzie out. Like, they were finding those guys. They were aggressive in the trade market. They were aggressive in finding some pieces. Man, they had Goldschmidt and Arenado when Walker and Gorman were here, and those guys haven't developed still. Like, they had Gibson and Lynn last season. They've had Michaelis for the last 5 seasons, and I haven't seen these younger pitchers develop. That is the last thing I think the Cardinals need to do, is go after those guys. They need to go out there and find young talent rather than worry about older players that can bring pop, but also bring a guiding light to some of their younger players.
Yeah, I don't think they need... And like you said, Markakis was a pretty good player that the Braves brought in.
I wanted him at the time that he was available when he went to Atlanta.
Yeah, he was a solid player. And in Atlanta for 6 seasons... ended up being 3% above league average. His best year was 2018. He was an all-star, 16% above league average. I mean, that's kind of like a Newpar, essentially.
Yeah.
Newpar-esque, a left-handed bat that can play the outfield. You don't need a guy that is older with experience, in my opinion. I think what the Cardinals are lacking isn't anything that deals with the locker room, isn't anything that has to do with leadership. I think Brendan Donovan's done a good job of taking on that role. I think Wilson Contreras, if you're looking for a veteran that's been here before,
Yeah.
If you keep him, that's the guy.
Yeah, don't trade Contreras. There's your Markakis.
Yeah, so now you've got that. What they're lacking is the star power. What they need is to find stars. Now, if they're going to rebuild and sell pieces and trade away a couple of these pieces that are complementary pieces that don't really fit into their timeline and go more younger and bring in prospects, okay, that's fine. But they can't be doing we're bringing in the veteran on a deal to bring leadership. To me, that is just a waste of money from the organization. They don't need that guy right now, especially in this part of their life cycle.
How many playoff games did Nick Markakis play in? Let me rephrase this. How many series did Nick Markakis play in the playoffs when he was with the Atlanta Braves?
Oh, man. 2015, 16. I'll say 3.
3. He was there from 2015 to 2020. They made the playoffs in 2018, played in 2018, lost in one series. 2019, lost against the Cardinals. And then 2020, they played in two series. And was that the World Series season?
2020?
2020? No, that was the Dodgers winning it.
That was the COVID year. The Dodgers
that was the Dodgers winning it.
I mean, it doesn't count, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, they've done this. They have this. This is what the Cardinals don't need to do anymore, is go find more Nick Markakises. They need to go out there and find the Acuñas, the Albies, the Rileys, rather than worry about the Nick Markakises.
Realistically speaking, though, if your targets are such that you can't wade out into big fish territory, maybe this is the realistic perspective. I'm not saying it's right, but if you can't commit the resources, if you can't land a star at this point, I'm just saying that could be one.
They don't need another complimentary piece.
I concur.
They have a ton of them right now.
Yeah, they don't need another.
They need to go get the guy that's not putting Masyn Winn in the 3-hole or putting Alec Burleson in the cleanup spot.
Exactly.
If you're operating under constraints, though, sizable ones at that, who said you can go do it?
Operate under constraints.
I said this, 2 days ago, yesterday. Even if the Cardinals do start operating as a, whatever they are in payroll, $120 million team compared to $160 million teams, I don't care what the restraints are. Tampa Bay has restraints. The Athletics have restraints. Everybody's got to go find the star. It's a matter of how you do it. So I don't care about the restrictions that ownership will eventually put on Chaim Bloom. Whatever the budget is, Chaim Bloom's got to do his job and find the star pieces, so they do not need more Nick Markakises.
And you've never had more assets in your system to go out there and acquire that star than what you do right now.
At the Major League level.
At the Major League level, that's what I mean. And at some point, you're going to have to, it's ish or get off the pot, right?
I'm with you. You don't have to convince me.
Stop it, Bradford. You're taking the Cardinals side, and I don't like it. With Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll get back over onto the Cardinals because it really feels like this team's going to finish bottom 10 in attendance for the season, and I don't know what that means for the Cardinals. But coming up next, we'll get into the junk drawer here on 101 ESPN.
NFL preseason action continues this Saturday. Rams and Chargers. Pregame at 5:30, kickoff at 8. Your destination for the NFL in St. Louis is 101 ESPN. The 101 Rewards Center is always loaded up with awesome giveaways. And right now, we have your shot to score a pair of Beats Solo 4 wireless headphones.
Enter to win now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app. Powered by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's open it up. The junk drawer with BK and Ferrario.
We got Believe It or Not coming up in about 15, 20 minutes or so. Get back into the Cardinals on the other side. But now, let's dive into the junk drawer. T-Bone, what do you got today?
Well, I saw this on social media. It's a thing that's becoming I guess you'd call it a trend or something that's starting to become popular over in China.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you're stressed, sometimes it's difficult to sleep, you know? Like
I've been there.
Toss and turn. I had a little bit of that last night, you know? Didn't get my best beauty sleep.
Happens.
So
you look
now,
beautiful, by the way, so it must have worked.
Thank you. It's the coffee. I saw this, and over in China is becoming a growing trend that to help with relieve stress and anxiety as adults go to sleep, pacifiers for adults are becoming a thing.
What?
Overseas.
No.
They are sold for $70. Some shops are claiming that they sell over 2,000 of them in a month. I think I'll just toss and turn. I don't know that I would want, you know.
Why does that help soothe people?
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know what the
thing that would keep me from sleeping was having something. I'm going to regret the sentence I'm going to say.
This sentence, and I stopped myself.
The thing that would keep me from sleeping is something occupying my brain that would be a pacifier. What I was going to say was something in my mouth, and somebody's going to take that the opposite direction. So what I really said was something that was occupying my... Like, have you ever fallen asleep with a cough drop in your mouth? Like, you've had a sore throat, you've had a cough.
No.
Really?
That's dangerous.
Well, it's dangerous, but like I've done it before. It's where it's like I don't plan on falling asleep, but it's like if you have a cough, I'm having this cough drop, and then the next thing you know, I conk out, and then I wake up the next morning and it's laying in the bed next to me.
It happens. It happens. I've been there, Alex.
But like I don't know why. Like this would, one, make me not fall asleep, and two, make me feel like a psychopath.
I don't know. It's muscle memory here. Okay, it's a reflex more than anything else. And this day and age, in this day and age, we're all into nostalgia, are we not? We want to be able to relax and going back to some distant memories.
Yeah. When was the last time you had a pacifier?
Yeah, I was going to say, is it nostalgia when you had a pacifier when you were 9 months old? Do you remember at that time?
Yeah, I was going to say, like, muscle memory, that's not it.
Yeah, I was told my kids don't have memories beyond until they get to the age 4, so I'm hoping my kids forget about angry dad from years 1 to 3.
I don't know. I think it's a bit of a gray area, but quite frankly, as far as daytime comfort, let's forget the sleeping angle of things, guys. Yesterday, okay, Alex, just wait for the day. Just wait for the day. It's not coming yet. Thankfully, it's not here for quite a bit of time. But if you have the privilege of moving in, checking in at a college facility, many of our listeners right at this time are probably doing so, right? The kids are out there. Yeah. Fine people of Northeast Missouri. It was tremendous yesterday. But let me tell you, hell hath no fury like anybody associated with moving in at college. I could have used, quite frankly, any sort of relaxer, any sort of...
after that?
Yeah, no shame. No shame.
No, I'll stay
or a lot of it. I'll just live in stress. This anxiety medicine that I've been on for my stress has been great. Yeah. So like it helps with this one. First of all, text line, you guys are getting nasty. Chill the bleep out. This is not TMA, so calm down over there. Second, I'm trying to think of a world where like my thought process was, man, I can't sleep. I need to go get my pacifier. Like at what point were you like, man, I can't take this anymore? Like you've gone past I'm going to like read a book. I'm going to go try some warm milk. I'm going to go get my pacifier.
What is your go-to?
Mine? Yeah. Read a book.
See, I can't do warm milk. That's disgusting.
I've never tried warm milk, but I've heard that it's a number one thing that puts you to sleep. I mean, obviously, like my daughters, when they did their bottles, you warm the bottle up and it's putting them to sleep right away. Mine is read a book. I literally will just pick one up, start reading, 3 pages in, yawn, out. Yeah. Probably why I struggled in school so much.
Yeah, my go-to, because I don't like reading. I'm gonna have to do it for a job, but
we read in the morning.
I don't like reading books. You know, I'd rather watch the show. Everybody tells me the book's better. Yeah, bite me. I listen to a little music. Nothing like hard, like I'm not listening to rock and roll when it's like 3 a.m. and I can't sleep, but I'll turn on like smooth jazz, just listen to that for a couple minutes, kind of relax a little bit, or even some of the like Tyler Childress I really like. His stuff's not like super hard, but it's a little bit soothing. I'll do that rather than, get up and read a book or something.
I've tried the classical music because they say like classical music helps you fall asleep. Oh man, that is obnoxious.
Yeah.
Maybe not a classical because it's like all silent and then all of a sudden the violin kicks in. It's like I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, I need the smooth saxophone, right?
Yeah.
That's what
jazz.
I need. Yeah.
Or I need the my wife got this for me when we first got married because like insomnia doing blues, like you can't sleep when you get home.
Yeah.
And like rainstorms, thunderstorms help me sleep.
Yeah.
She got me one of those white noise machines that like has like thunderstorms
That's a good
with
one,
it.
too.
That one worked really well for a while.
They are effective. They are effective.
And then my daughter broke it, and so I was like, oh well, back to not sleeping.
My go-to on that, because I do play those every now and then, is rainforest sounds. Nothing like hearing little frogs.
My go-to, honestly, is have kids. You want to go to sleep easy and not toss and turn? Go have some kids. Because they'll wear you out by about 8 o'clock. By 8:30, you're ready to go.
Sufficiently exhausted. See, we're bringing it back full circle, right? Perhaps I'm largely hopeless. Maybe that's why I'm the most into this alternative method.
I'm still a little concerned with your muscle memory thing, Bradford. So.
You're rocking yourself back and forth, albeit orally.
Anybody else have the image of Bradford being like, honey, I'll be right back. I can't fall asleep. I need to go get my binky. And then just laying in bed. And anyway, images that I'm not going to put anymore on the air. With Bradford Bruns, Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Alex Ferrario. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll sing Believe It or Not. But coming up next, are the Cardinals going to finish bottom 10 in attendance this season? And what does that mean moving forward for the team? We'll get to that next here on 101 ESPN.
Blues hockey is on 101 ESPN.
Get the inside scoop on and off the ice with the Last Minute Blues podcast with Alex Ferrario, Jeremy Rutherford, and Donnie Fandango.
Blues opinion, talk, and speculation. It's what we do.
Watch or listen to the Last Minute Blues podcast on our YouTube channel or at 101ESPN.com. WXOS, WXOS HD1 East St. Louis, 101 ESPN is driven by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. You can now listen to 101 ESPN on demand. Get caught up on all our shows and podcasts at 101ESPN.com or on the 101 mobile app. 101 ESPN podcasts are presented by the Schaefer Door Company.
So the Cardinals going to finish bottom 10 in attendance this season at Busch Stadium. Sounds like a crazy question to ask because a lot of Cardinals fans would probably be screaming, well, they should for what the ownership's done over these last few years. But we know how it works. People still go to Cardinals games, and they announce the certain versus what people actually show up. But the Cardinals sold fewer than 21,000 tickets for all three of those games against the Rockies, which really shouldn't surprise anybody. I think this weekend against the Yankees is going to be the last big crowd at Busch Stadium because it's the Yankees. I don't care how you feel about the Cardinals. If you get a chance to see the Yankees and Cardinals play, it's historic. Plus, you've got Aaron Judge coming into town. There's going to be people there. And it's the last weekend before school officially kicks off for a lot of people. This one will be busy.
So you're saying that these following home series after this one aren't going to sell out? So we've got Pittsburgh for 4.
Yep.
The Athletics for 3, including Nikki Glazer Day.
I don't really know who you're going to see for that team, but go for it.
The Giants. They've got Rafael Devers for 3.
Go see Jordan Hicks.
Okay, that one actually might do well because I just realized that that's Hall of Fame weekend. So, okay, that one might do well.
Okay, yeah, that one will probably do well because it's Renteria, it's Walt Jocketty. I think people will go for that.
Hrabowski, right?
Yeah, Hrabowski, yes.
Yeah. And then 3 for the Reds and 3 for the Brewers.
And the Brewers won, by the way. It's the first week of Blues hockey being officially back. They play their first preseason game, so Blues season kicks at that time. So, yeah, I don't think it's going to be very well attended because you also got college football season underway and in NFL.
True. That's going to take a lot of my time.
People are going to be getting into that stuff. People are back to work, back to school. I just don't think people are really going. But the bigger issue here is where they enter. So they entered the series yesterday, or ended, I should say, 19th in attendance with 28,902 people. If it trends the wrong direction, I don't know if you're going to finish bottom 10, but you might be 12th, you might be 13th. Like, Cincinnati is going to outdo you potentially by the end of this season in terms of attendance. And T-Bone, I know people feel as if that's sending the message to the Cardinals. After we've heard the DeWitts talk over the last couple of years, I don't think it's sending the right message. I think it's sending the message to them, well, this is why we aren't spending money and we're going the direction we're going and why we're financially motivated to move on from Sonny Gray and Wilson Contreras and Nolan Arenado because people aren't coming to the games.
Yeah, I'll be fascinated to see how ownership addresses this because it's certainly, based on everything that seems to be reported when you talk with people, it's, hey, they're probably going to cut payroll again. They want to cut payroll. I mean, they were... I think it was from Katie at the deadline. They were, quote, financially motivated to move Sonny Gray, Wilson Contreras if they could, Nolan Arenado still. And, moving Arenado now makes sense for the Cardinals, both from a financial perspective potentially, but also, they need that spot at third base for playing time for some of their young guys. But, man, this is that just ever going circle, right? Of, okay, well, we're not going to spend money on the team. The team ends up being bad, and fans don't go out, and attendance goes down, and it just continues to go. And it's just this constant circle to where you just see this continuing around and around for years and years. It's what happened with the Cincinnati Reds. It's why they fell into the spot where they had some decent teams, but they underperformed. Ownership said, okay, instead of spending on this, let's kind of tear this down. And they haven't really brought that payroll back up. They had a very disappointing offseason. Now, maybe that doesn't end up happening for the Cardinals, but if we're being honest, they technically should be bottom 10 already because, I'm not counting Tampa Bay and the Athletics. They're playing in minor league ballparks. So that's 2 teams we can take off. So you are 19th of 28 teams. And to your point, the Reds are kind of right there. They might be able to surpass you down the home stretch here. Yeah, the Cardinals fans have made their point. Hey, we don't want this kind of a product. We want to see the stars. We want to get back to where we were in the early 2000s with guys like Albert Pujols, Scott Rowland, even the teams in the 2010s, right? You had Matt Holliday, Carlos Beltran. You had those types of players. And that's, again, back to our stories. It's not just about the results on the field. What's the thing that's going to bring people out here? It's not anything about the ballpark experience. It is about, are they winning and do they have stars? And the answer this year was, hey, they've done some winning. They're a 500 team, which has been a little surprising. They were in the playoff race there for a little bit. I mean, we got super excited in May. they just don't have anybody that really pulls you to the ballpark. Yeah. And that's what they're missing.
They're missing a competitive team in an example of going after it, trying to be aggressive. Like I witnessed this firsthand, like I know many people have, of the Blues over the last few years. Like 2 years ago, in the middle of the season, when they were like actually making a push with Drew Bannister, people weren't there. Like it was an emptier stadium. Now it picked up a little bit as they got closer to potentially making the playoffs, but it wasn't like it's been. Blues fans are dedicated, just like Cardinals fans are dedicated, but it was a weird spot to be in. Last year at the beginning of the season, when the roster looked like it was going to be competitive, they got Holloway and Broberg, Bannister was still there. That place was sold out. And people want to know you're trying to be competitive. And that's just where the Cardinals are at right now. And on top of that, T-Bone, I think a lot of people view it and say, well, the DeWitts need to sell. And you have noticed something with the Minnesota Twins with the news from them yesterday. It's a trend in baseball where we've seen multiple teams act as if they're going to sell, say they're going to sell, and then pull the team right back off the market.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of that, but 3 of the last 5 teams that have been put on the market, 3 of them have been pulled back. One was the Angels, and that just could be Art Moreno. That guy, something.
Psycho.
The other was the Washington Nationals put their team on the market. They sold Juan Soto at the deadline because they didn't want that contract potentially be on the books if they decided to keep him and sell the team. So they ended up moving on from him. And then the Minnesota Twins. Dude, I can't imagine being a Minnesota Twins fan today. Yeah. Because you had the huge sell-off. They sold 10 players. They cut a ton of payroll last year, or at the trade deadline, and it was, okay, it's clearly because they're up for sale. Ownership's trying to sell, so they're trying to get rid of as much money as possible. It's the typical playbook, right? New owner comes in, they buy the team, they say, hey, get rid of this. We don't want to be the bad guys coming in as the new owners. That's what it felt like was going to happen. It felt like, and everything they would say publicly was, hey, we've got a sale, we've got a sale. And then there was no sale, and now that family's going to hold on to the team. Good luck recapturing that fan base. Yeah. Dude, I felt so bad for Minnesota Twin fans yesterday when I saw that team was not put up for sale.
Yeah, I think it tells you that the value of teams versus what somebody wants to spend for where baseball's at, they just don't want to invest in it, but it's not a good look on that front.
Baseball has such a tough spot right now when it comes to the valuations. And look, I don't want to overly panic about it, but there are 2 very alarming trends with baseball right now. One is the TV situation for teams like the Cardinals. The Twins are in this situation where I think they are being produced by Major League Baseball, if not mistaken. Yeah. And then the second thing is there's a freaking lockout potentially coming in 2 years. Mm-hmm. So why would I buy a baseball team when the second year that I own the team or the first year that I own the team, there may not be baseball?
It's kind of why I find the offseason fascinating and how people will react now that it's a new regime. And like after Chaim Bloom talks with people in November, how they react. Because next season, if you believe that the Cardinals are going to try and get out of more money in terms of like Arenado, Gray, Contreras, and field a worse team, going down the path of what Buster Olney told us, where it's going to get worse before it gets better, are people willing to buy back into a team that has new leadership, that's not John Mozeliak, with a younger group, or are they still going to be in the same spot where they want to see a competitive roster? And if you're not spending in the offseason or if you're not wheeling and dealing, we're still not going to show up.
Yeah, I don't think fans show up next year just because Chaim's in charge.
What if they're active in the trade market? Not saying that they go out there and acquire the star, but they go out there and they acquire younger talent.
Yeah, I don't think that would, like, when you say younger, do you mean major league talent? Yeah. Because, like, I actually think they're probably going to acquire prospects for what they move.
Which that doesn't fancy any Cardinals fan, in my opinion, now.
I just don't know if change for change's sake would bring people to the ballpark. Unless you are getting a guy that is clearly an upgrade and is clearly a star, I don't think it changes anything. I don't think this is anything about Mo and Chaim Bloom. Now, it's about their decisions and what got the team to this point. But to me, it just comes down to winning. Can I look at the team coming into, I don't know, let's say January of next year, or February. We'll say February. That's more the end of the offseason. Yeah. Can I look at the team in February and go, okay, that feels like a 90-win team that can win the NL Central? No. If the answer to that question is no, from whatever Chaim does, even if he trades pieces, shuffles the lawn chairs a little bit, and I still look at them and go, 75, 82, somewhere in that range. No, people are not going to go to the ballpark, even though it's Chaim Bloom and it is a different-looking roster.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that one. But it's not trending in the right direction for a team that could be the lowest it's been in a long time in terms of attended games at Busch Stadium throughout the season. Tanner Hendrickson, Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. One nugget to pass along. I just saw Jesse Rogers tweet this out. The Cubs are bringing up their top prospect, outfielder Owen Cassie, to Major League Baseball. He's going to play DH today. This is his second full season in AAA. This year, 22 home runs, 955 OPS, 93 games for the Iowa Cubs this season. 22-year-old coming up for the Chicago Cubs. So you're starting to see top prospect call-up time. Also, does that tell you that the Cubs are panicking a little bit?
Yeah.
Because I know they just lost Amaya, I believe it was, to an injury that looked like he's going to be out for the rest of the year. He had to be carted off, but this kind of tells me that the Cubs are panicking a little bit because things have not gone well for their offense with Tucker and Crow Armstrong.
Actually, this could just be he's been down there long enough because I just now see he's had, how many plate appearances is this? 900-plus plate appearances at AAA, and he has a 893 OPS.
Yeah, he's performed well.
So this could just be I don't know if panic would be the right word, but let's try and strike while the iron is hot.
Yeah.
But this is one of those pieces that they would look at and say, hey, well, this is why we didn't push all in, because we don't want to move from our top 100 prospects. He was 64th coming into the year in Baseball America's top prospects ranking. So,
and I get it. He's 22 years old. This is going to be an outfielder for you, so he could be a great piece with you with Crow Armstrong.
And it'll be fun to see them try and say, hey, this guy replaces Kyle Tucker next year. No pressure. No pressure.
Great for the Cardinals, though, right?
Get out there.
They'll go get Kyle Tucker then.
Oh, no. Yeah, no, we can't afford that.
Yeah.
You guys
aren't showing up, so we can't get a star.
PCA's hitting 0.73 in August.
He's been
My
terrible.
goodness gracious.
Maybe instead of Kyle Tucker being moved on, they should move on from Pete Crow Armstrong, right? And keep Kyle Tucker and go with this guy? No, maybe not.
Yeah.
A little too aggressive there, Ferrario. Tanner Hendrickson, Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. We're going to sing Believe It or Not next. You give us the scenarios. We'll tell you if we believe it or not here on 101 ESPN.
The Redbird Report, your front row seat to all things Cardinals. From the dugout to the diamond, BK and T-Bone go deep with the latest news, notes, and analysis. Watch the Redbird Report on YouTube or listen online at 101ESPN.com. This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
You know, even though the Cardinals suck, they can't ruin this.
Nobody can ever ruin this song for us.
That's true.
Brings the spirits up. Hit it.
Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. I never thought I could feel so
free.
On a wing and a prayer.
Who could it be?
Believe it or not, it's just me.
It felt better with no wing flapping.
Yeah, I know.
Did it?
Well, you know,
I thought about it, honestly.
It's not Bradford's fault. He was a little late on his thing, but
was late on his cue.
So it's always tough to figure out which role he's got to do.
You know what? It sounds like an excuse because Bradford's done this enough. Bradford, you got to be better than that.
I take full
That's actually
responsibility.
true. Yeah, we're not going to make excuses like the Cardinals, okay?
Yeah. Bradford, you need to be better than that.
I relish this. I want, believe it or not, I want that cowboy hat. Bring it every time.
Yeah, seriously.
We need to know where those cowboy hats are at, Bradford.
No,
we
you
think
don't.
you took them all home with you, and you need to return them to the studio.
They're with the pacifiers.
Oh, jeez. Back to the images. Bradford Bruns, Tanner Hendrickson. I'm Alex Ferrario. It is time for Believe It or Not. You send us the scenarios. We will tell you if we are going to believe it or not. 314-399-9646. Guys, I'll go simple after our Snuggurud conversation. Believe it or not, Jimmy Snuggurud scores north of 25 goals this season.
North of 25 goals. Man, the way the Blues hear not talk about him makes me think he might be able to do it. I'm going to say believe it. I don't know if he'll get to 30, but I think he'll get to 25 plus this year.
Begrudgingly, I can't quite believe it, but I know he's going to be in the low 20s there. So not knowing exactly where he's going to fit in as far as the lineup constitution, as far as the top six goes, right now I need to see a little bit more. I loved what I've observed, however, in the postseason. I know that the upside is there. I'll go just under to be, somewhat riding the fence.
I'm believing it. We'll see if we can find this audio and see if there's anything there for tomorrow. But Jim Montgomery was on a hockey podcast yesterday, and he said Snuggurud's probably going to take that Bolduc spot on the power play. If he's playing PP1 opportunities, this guy's going to score north of 25 goals. I mean, the shot, you didn't even see, and I remember having this conversation with Snuggurud in the postseason. Like you said, I feel like I'm not able to get the shot off that I feel comfortable with. You haven't even seen that elite shot of what it was throughout his time in college yet at the NHL level. When you see it, you're going to be thinking the same way you thought with Zach Bolduc. So I'm believing it. I think he's going to get power play opportunities, and I think he scores north of 25. Maybe like a tick above, but I think he could be Holloway territory. T-Bone, what do you got?
Guys, I can't believe we're here. Believe it or not,
We're here.
The Milwaukee Brewers will be the team to beat across the NL Central for the next 3 years.
Ooh. Oh, believe it. I'm done denying this team. They are a pitching development factory. They know how to identify talent that other teams think aren't good, and they're aggressive with their moves. I think Kyle Tucker and the Cubs scenario of what T-Bone laid out in this last segment, I think that's realistic. And if they lose Kyle Tucker, I think that offense looks very differently next year. The Pirates are the Pirates. Cardinals are going to be Cardinals. And the Cincinnati Reds are an unknown for me because I don't know if they're only going to spend. They've got a good nucleus, but they don't seem like a team that's willing to spend. I'm believing it. The Brewers are the team to beat.
I can't quite go there because I trust in the Cubs, the front office, the money that is there in the coffers to be able to do what is necessary to make the adjustments late in the season, year in and year out. And this isn't really to take anything away from Milwaukee, but I'm still wondering, I am still incredibly curious as to how this team, with the lineup it currently possesses, has been able to ascend to the top of the division. And that's why when I'm taking the long view here, guys, I can't say with confidence that Milwaukee is going to be, say, a division favorite entering the season. I think you have a lot of guys right now basically playing beyond their skis, so to speak, and give credit where credit is due. I like the pitching, but if you're talking about mashers in that Cubs order, and I do believe that this team has an incredible opportunity to retain Tucker, I think that's where you come down. Do you believe that Tucker is going to be a long-term member of the Cubs, or is he going to fly that coop? I'm actually leaning with Tucker staying put, which is why I'm siding with Chicago.
See, I would believe this. I don't think Tucker's staying in Chicago, and I think Milwaukee has proven they are a pitching lab. Now, anytime you are built on pitching, it can go just like that, where guys lose it, guys get injured, things change. they might be starting to figure out this whole offense thing a little bit. Not to where they're developing a superstar, but they seem to be able to get guys just to be above league average. Now, I don't know if that's sustainable or not, but I think the Cubs are going to look a lot different if they lose Kyle Tucker. I still think they'll be good. I don't think they'll be the class of the National League Central like the Brewers would be. So I would say believe this. I think the Brewers are the class of the NL Central for the next 3+ years.
Bradford?
Goodness, if Churio takes that next step as well, I guess the sky could be the limit. Hey, guys, something that we couldn't get to during NFL Quick Hitters. So Shedeur Sanders currently dealing with an oblique issue, now unlikely to suit up in the Browns' next exhibition game this coming weekend against those Philadelphia Eagles. Believe it or not, Shedeur, fresh off of a grand total of 1 nice preseason contest, he gets a start during the 25 regular season.
I'm going to say believe it. They have 4 quarterbacks right now on their team?
They're going to carry all of those on to opening day. I really think so.
They've got Flacco,
Gabriel, Sanders. Can you name the fourth? Not Watson. He's injured for the year.
Is it Pickett?
Yep.
I thought it was a Steelers guy. Well,
I had no idea he was on the roster.
I would place Sanders over Pickett. I would play Sanders over Gabriel until I see Gabriel do it in preseason, because Sanders looked pretty good in his preseason game. Now I know he's dealing with an oblique. It comes down to Flacco and Sanders. Flacco, there's no upside. You're just hoping to remain relevant, and then Sanders is the upside. So I'm going to believe this one. I think he starts a game for him. He's probably the best option, or at least the one that has the most talent to win you football games versus the other 3 guys.
They also have Tyler Huntley, by the way. Wasn't he a...
He was a Raven, wasn't he?
Then a Dolphin.
Yeah. Was a Pro Bowler back in 2022.
That was the Ravens one, wasn't it? That was when Jackson got hurt, and Huntley was
he played pretty well.
Keeping them afloat. It was like, oh my gosh, look at Huntley. He's the next Jackson.
I'm going to say believe it. I don't think he'll start the season as the starting quarterback. I think that's probably going to go to Flacco. They'll go with the experience, and they'll see if they can win with Joe Flacco. And then after, 7 games, 8 games, I don't know when they're by. It's probably about that time when they realize, hey, look, it's just not our year. We might as well play one of the kids, whether that's Gabriel, whether that's Sanders. I think they'll probably choose Sanders. I think he's more NFL ready than Dylan Gabriel. So I'll believe it. I think he'll start at least 1. I don't think he'll be the starting quarterback to begin the year, but he will get in.
Yeah, I think towards the end of the season, whether they're trying for the playoffs or they're out of the playoffs, that's when they go to Sanders.
Odds are out of the playoffs.
Out of the playoffs, odds are.
Plus,
Sanders gives you at least a chance versus Joe Flacco, who...
Vision race, AFC North, December. Nothing is going to be in play at that point in time. Flacco will begin the season because if for no other reason, a lot of these guys have been dinged up. They haven't had the preseason reps. So if anybody has to go, though, it's Kenny Pickett, right?
Yeah. I don't know. The fifth one, Tyler Huntley, might be the option. But, God, if they carry 5 quarterbacks, what a disaster. What a factory of sadness that place is. All right, let's get to some of yours on the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. Believe it or not, the Blues will have 6 20 or more goal scorers this season. We were talking about this earlier, T-Bone. I know I do this every year where I get super optimistic about the offense, and once we get closer to hockey season, when I see a training camp, it's going to get really wild in here. But if you don't have 60, or if you don't have 6 20 goal scorers, something went wrong, because I think 6 of them should be locks. And then the question is, can you find that 7th, or how many of them can get above 25? But I think Thomas, Snuggurud, Buchnevich, Kyrou, Holloway, Neighbors. And then, honestly, Shen is pretty consistent with being a 20-goal scorer for you.
Shen would be up there. Did you say Suter?
I didn't say Suter, and I didn't say Bukestad, because those are the 2 that, to me, are unknowns.
Yeah, Bukestad's the one I'm not as certain.
I wouldn't either.
Suter, I think, could be that again.
If Suter can, I think Bukestad probably could, because that might be the line that they're using. And Bukestad scored 15 2 years ago when his back wasn't injured. Yeah. So that's why those are 2 unknowns. I haven't seen them play in a Blues system. I have seen the other 7 guys that are consistently 20-goal scorers.
Yeah, I would believe this. I think they are going to be pretty close. I don't know if they'll get to the full 9 20-goal scorers, but I think they're going to be pretty close. I think they're going to be one of the best offenses in the NHL this season.
I'll believe it for sure. You could actually top out at 7, maybe even 8. That's fine. You don't necessarily need all those 25 and north individuals, but this team is going to win once again based on strength and numbers.
Believe it or not, the NL West is still the strongest division in baseball.
Ooh.
So you got the Dodgers, Padres. That's about it, because the Giants aren't that dominant. I think I would much rather take the Phillies.
I don't think there's a league that has 3
Phillies,
really
Mets,
good teams in it. now.
Yeah.
Because like the AL West, it's Astros, Mariners. Central, it's just the Tigers.
The East could be that team.
In the East,
division, rather.
it's Blue Jays, Red Sox, maybe Yankees. I don't know, the Yankees aren't all that impressive to me. I'll say believe it. The Padres and Dodgers still feel like World Series contenders. The Padres are playing like one. They've been incredible over the last month. They've got an elite bullpen. Their starting pitching's really good. And it's just a matter of does their offense really click into place? And right now it is, and it's clicking into place without Tatis and Merrill hitting. So eventually those guys are going to figure it out. And then the Dodgers, it's just, are they going to be healthy by the time you get to October? Because if they are healthy and Betts kind of figures this out, that's 3 elite hitters, an unbelievable rotation, and a bullpen that should be nasty. I'll believe this. I think the NL West is still the best division in baseball.
And Tanner, you really brought up an interesting stat before the show, which I do find intriguing. But by the same token, does LA really care right now that it only has the 4th most, or I guess you could say 4th fewest victories since Independence Day? No, it's all about getting ready for the postseason. I would venture to say that Kershaw this season, limited body of work, has actually exceeded expectations marginally. Glasnow not getting any run support. Things are rounding into form. And most important of all, yesterday, if you noticed as well, the numbers overall stat line didn't look great, but Ohtani worked into that 5th inning. Watch out.
Can I bring up some... call it some sad news.
Breaking news.
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's not worth it. It's too sad.
Okay.
Remember how Roger Goodell kind of said, like, hey, the red zone thing, like, we're doing this thing with ESPN?
Yeah,
like,
they said it's not going to impact
there
at
could
all.
be
It's
like
going to be the same thing.
Yeah, I know. But then there was like that whole idea of like, hey, what if they did like a college football?
Oh, yeah.
red
We
zone?
talked about that. Great idea.
Yeah, so according to Front Office Sports, they are reporting Fox Sports is unlikely to license Big 10 or Big 12 games to ESPN for a potential college football.
Believe it or not, Fox Sports screwed that up.
I would say not.
I'd say not too. If I'm Fox, I keep that.
Yeah, do your own. Like ESPN could still do SEC and ACC, and then they can throw in. They've got the rights to a couple group
Yeah, they
of
just
5.
don't get the Big Ten.
Yeah, Fox can now do Big 10 and Big 12, and they probably have a couple of other smaller ones too. I could see where maybe like both of them end up getting into the red zone. I don't know what you call it, competition. I guess.
saw the interview Scott Hansen did. It was, I forget what show it was, but
wasn't it the Rich Eisen show?
Yeah, that's what it was when he was like, oh yeah, nothing's going to change. And I'm like, God bless you, Scott Hansen. I love you so much. It's like, you can just keep it as is. All right, one more from the 636. Guys, believe it or not, Radek Fox is going to be a bigger loss for the Blues than when we originally thought. I'm not believing this. Don't get me wrong, Radek Fox was a really good player, and I do think that 4th line being an identity line is going to hurt the Blues. But you replaced Foxa with a big Nick Bukestad who can play that style. I've seen it when he played for Utah, and he's got more offensive upside, not as good defensively. But I also think your 3rd line is going to be an identity line, and they've got multiple options now at the center position on the 4th line, whether it's Sundqvist or Nathan Walker. I think they're going to be fine. It sucks to lose Foxa, but I think they replaced it with the right pieces.
Yeah, I'm not going to believe this. He scored 15 points last year. And if Sonny's my 4th line center, that's 5 points better right there. And you got better than the 3rd line by having Suter be the 3rd line center, or if Shen ends up being bumped down to the 3rd line center. You're just better and deeper than what they were a year ago. And that's not anything against Foxa. Foxa played his role. I also think, I think they're going to be fine. I think they'll be able to find a new identity line. I'm not worried about that because it took the WTF line, 30 games to become the WTF line? And even then, they produced nothing offensively. They were one of the worst lines at 5-on-5 in the NHL. It wasn't until the second half that they really kind of clicked things together. It takes time to figure that stuff out. So it might take 30 games for the Blues to come up with whatever their new identity line is, whether that's the 3rd line and they go big with Suter, Bukestad, and Neighbors, or it becomes the new look 4th line. It's going to take some time. They will get there. I'm confident in that.
Yeah, I'm not believing it from the Blues perspective, but on the other hand, for Dallas, Jim Nill knew exactly what he was doing, bringing back Fox after being 1 year apart from the Lone Star State there. And the production last year, it obviously transcended. It went well beyond what you saw on the score sheet. The physicality and also that great, effective, that success rate in the faceoff dot. Some of those aspects, a lot of those aspects are going to be sorely missed, but a nice deal for Foxa himself going back to Big D.
Coming up at 15, we'll get to the rewind and wrap up the show. But coming up next, Arch Manning is out saying some wild stuff before the college football season has even begun. We'll get to that and something on the Illinois side because Luke Altmaier got an opportunity to do something that a Mizzou quarterback did. Maybe. We'll discuss that next here on 101 ESPN.
We've got your chance to win a 4-pack of passes to Monster Jam. Saturday, September 20th at the Dome at America Center. Get ready to cheer, scream, and be amazed as massive Monster Jam trucks and world champion drivers take over St. Louis for the ultimate day packed with high-flying action and jaw-dropping stunts.
Get all the info and enter to win that free 4-pack of tickets for Monster Jam. Now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app.
Start your day with the morning after on 101 ESPN. Get in the know first on everything St. Louis sports with Tim McKernan, Doug Vaughn, and Martin Kilcoy. Listen to TMA weekday mornings from 7 to 11 a.m. on 101 ESPN. The morning after is presented by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Bronx Bombers bound for the Lou. Good afternoon. I'm Bradford Bruns with a Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet plus Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Tomorrow at 7:15, St. Louis welcomes Aaron Boone's Yankees to town. New York sits 6 games behind Toronto in that American League East race. Ollie Marmol's Cardinals, of course, just dropped their series finale against NL West worst Colorado. Currently, those aforementioned Blue Jays are approaching first pitch versus Chicago. Max Scherzer, Matthew Boyd locking horns Rogers Center style. Baltimore already leading Seattle 5-0. This Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
So we didn't get to this a couple of days ago, but The Athletic had an article out that said, is Texas college football's new Alabama? Along with Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. And honestly, that headline is just wild in itself, making a statement of a team being Texas becoming an Alabama team that was dominant for what, like a 15-year stretch? BK was looking at the numbers yesterday or 2 days ago where they ranked number 1 in the college football poll at some point for 15 straight years. And I think it was top 10 offense or something for 20. I don't remember what the numbers were. He had those numbers that he pulled up. And I know it was, they ranked number 1 at some point in the season for what, 15 straight years it was?
In a 15-year period from 2008 to 2023. In the AP preseason poll, Alabama was ranked number 1 7 times in that time frame. They got to number 1 in every year but 1 in the AP rankings from 2008 to 2023. They ended up in the college football playoff basically every single season, and they won in that time frame 6 national championships. I think we're going to need a bigger sample size than Texas becoming the number 1, the new version of Alabama.
Meanwhile, its first season in the SEC, it went 13-3 and 7-1 in conference play. They have Arch Manning, and they get to the college football playoff first round, and now all of a sudden they're the new Alabama. I mean, as a matter of fact, and I am not the college football guy here, you two guys are more than I am, but nobody is going to be the next Alabama because of NIL and the transfer portal and how things are at. I think it's a lot more competitive window than what it's been in the past. But also, I don't know how we go straight to Texas being the new Alabama when Georgia's been the more dominant force for a longer period of time than what Texas has been. In the SEC, by the way.
Thank you very much, because the former staff member there, assistant for Nick Saban, that's right, in Tuscaloosa, Kirby Smart, if you're going to make any sort of a logical progression, guys, as far as Alabama maybe being a little more lean relative to expectations down in the last couple of years during the Nick Saban cycle, and even that is a stretch. The team against which Alabama competed head on, the team that has been able to reach the rarefied heights in college football more consistently than anybody else in the past 5 years, has been Georgia. Think about it. Last season, we basically lament the fact so many people point to the fact that, well, Georgia, had the flame out in the CFP. And a down season for Georgia, it still won the SEC championship. It knocked off Texas, that's right, twice. And then if you had your number 1 quarterback, frankly, Carson Beck, instead of one Gunnar Stockton in that CFP matchup against Notre Dame, I think you possibly can break through that threshold as well. So to sit here and say, because this is the narrative here, everybody is so hyped up and absolutely wanting to see what you get out of Arch Manning. And it is exciting. It absolutely could push and elevate Texas into that next realm in the second year there in the SEC. But to sit here and say that even entering this season, I don't get, frankly, guys, why there's this big chasm, it seems, between Texas at number 1, and then you obviously have Ohio State, but Georgia and Alabama down the line. For the Crimson Tide, frankly, it's a little more of a desperation situation because Kalen DeBoer failed to meet expectations. Mammoth Alabama expectations in year number one. But Georgia isn't going anyplace. You have to demonstrate that you can actually knock off Georgia, and more than once, which the Bulldogs have proven time and time again.
And if we're being honest, Georgia's not even at the level that Bama was. They're not there.
They were for a little bit, but not this level.
They had a 2-year stretch where it was back-to-back natties back in 2021 and 2022, and one of those was that pure blowout of TCU. But after that, missed the college football playoff, won the Orange Bowl. Last year they ended up getting in and they lose in the Sugar Bowl. Now, yes, part of that was their quarterback got hurt, but if we're talking about that run that Alabama had, I mentioned 6 championships in a 15-year window, and a team that was constantly top, number one when it came to AP preseason poll. To Georgia's credit, they have been in the top 5 in the AP preseason poll for the last 7 years here. So they're kind of there. They just need more championships to get there, and it's got to be over a longer period of time. So they're probably the closest thing to it. Ohio State might be able to say that because they are producing a wide receiver factory. They finally captured the championship with Ryan Day last year. Maybe they're that team in the Big Ten that has a chance at this. But again, we're in year one of that. In Texas, we haven't even seen it yet, to Bradford's point. They have to... I'm not so worried about winning the SEC championship. They got to win in the college football playoff, right? They got to go win the Natty to even be put into this conversation.
And Alex, you made that excellent point about in the Wild West that is the NIL landscape here in modern college athletics. We're not going to get, in all likelihood, another dynastic run a la an Alabama. Georgia could have gone for the three-peat, but big deal. So Texas so far going into the season, some of the reports are conflicting, may have spent upwards of $40 million on its roster. But what has it won? We haven't seen anything tangible yet.
See, I'm not convinced that this can happen still.
Really?
I know that the college athletics is in a weird space right now.
No, it's in a great space. Very healthy.
Oh, yeah.
30-team playoff coming your way shortly.
Well, drinks in charge, yes. But, we're talking about Alabama. They were dominant, yes. The 6 national championships, they did get to 3 others that they lost, so they got into 9 in that 15-year window. I mean, Georgia's done 2 in the last 4 that they've gotten there. I think you can do it. Now, I don't know if you can have that long of a stretch, 15 years of dominance. I think it's probably now cut down to about 8 to 9. But I still think we could still see some programs become powerhouses and go on significant runs because there's still significant NIL dollars that are thrown at some of these recruits, thrown at players in the portal. You can go fix your mistakes if you make a mistake in recruiting now compared to what it was a couple years ago. You couldn't end up making that mistake in the portal.
You got to keep a couple of things, though. You have to maintain a coach, a high-level coach like Alabama did with Nick Saban, and then you got to find a way to make sure that you're continuing to find the right quarterback.
Yeah.
Because,
Saban never really had... the elite NFL
he was just elite everywhere else, but you weren't losing guys
Mac
as
Jones,
much.
which I fell for. But other than that,
well, that's true. You did fall for that, and you fell hard.
He finally got to Milroe and all those other guys.
Yeah, but the other part for this too is the quarterbacks. You mentioned Georgia disappearing, whether it was an injury for a quarterback or then they lose a quarterback and then you're finding the next one. That's the problem with this now. You're not keeping guys for a sustained amount of time. Can Texas do that? Can another program do it? Is it possible? Absolutely it is, because I think a lot of people probably didn't expect Alabama to be doing that at the time that they did. But, boy, it's just wild to act as if that's possible after their first year in the SEC and how great that they were, and now all of a sudden being they're the new Alabama. I liked this text from the 618 that said, Texas might not be number 1 after their first game of the season.
Yeah, they're not even favored in that game.
They're playing Ohio State in Ohio. It might look pretty ugly after the first one.
Boy, that's going to be fun, though. Yeah. You've got, my goodness, you have LSU, which should be, again, one of the best teams in the SEC as well. Clemson in week 1 and Texas as well as OSU. Let's get it going now.
The first weekend of college football is just going to be insane, which, as BK mentioned earlier, not going to be great for my relationship with my wife and my family. Tanner Hendricks in Bradford Bruns. I'm Alex Ferrario. We'll rewind it and wrap up the show next here on 101 ESPN.
It's an MLB weekend on ESPN. Saturday, Mets and Mariners. First pitch at 3:10. Then Sunday, it's Game 2. First pitch at 6:10. The MLB plays on 101 ESPN. Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's run it back with a daily rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Lou, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
Things up here on BK and Ferrario, along with Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns. Alex Ferrario with you. Bradford will be back with us tomorrow. BK out once again, out in Colorado for vacation. He'll be back on Monday. If you missed anything from our show today, you can check it out over on our podcast page at 101 ESPN or at 101 ESPN, 101ESPN.com. The podcast, of course, is brought to you by Schaefer Door Company. You can also watch it over on our YouTube channel at 101 ESPN STL. Studio Cam is brought to you by Air Alliance Team. And you got the easy-to-use 101 ESPN app, which is brought to you by Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers. Whether it's on YouTube or over on that app, you can check out all of the shows, whether it's TMA, BK and Ferrario, the Fast Lane, but you can also check out the podcasts that we have up there. A brand new episode of Last Minute Blues podcast with Steve Ott. There's a new Redbird report talking about some of the younger prospects like Quinn Matthews and J.J. Weatherholt, getting into some of the other Cardinals things as you progress closer towards the end of the season. And I know they have a new episode of the Spread Zone up as well that you could check out some NFL preseason odds that Tim, Riz, and Stalter are looking at. So all of those available to you over on the 101 ESPN app. But fellas, as we rewind it, let's rewind to what we did at the beginning of the show. A Cardinals team that loses the season series against the Rockies, lost yesterday. The bullpen imploded, which has been a rare occurrence since the trade deadline. But my bigger issue for the Cardinals is the core that we were supposed to get excited about as fans. You are starting to see some massive warts on this. They have underperformed in the second half. I know it's still a small sample size post All-Star break, but you lose to the Rockies. You've had losing records against bad teams, and the guys that were supposed to be mainstays of your core moving forward have all significantly struggled. It starts to get more and more concerning what this offseason is going to look like, T-Bone.
Yeah, even if you don't have a star player, you should still be able to beat the Colorado Rockies.
Yes.
And the offense didn't show up in Game 2. They got shut out by Kyle Freeland in the bullpen of the Rockies. And then yesterday it did its job early on, but then didn't put the final nail in the coffin. And yes, the bullpen did blow up. It's going to happen, but the offense goes 0 for 12 in the final 4 innings of that game. That can't happen. Even though you were lacking a star, you have got to beat what is the worst team in baseball and potentially one of the worst teams in baseball history in the Colorado Rockies. Said it earlier in the show. The Cardinals and the Nationals are the only 2 teams in baseball that lost the season series to the 2024 White Sox, who are the worst team in baseball history, and the 2025 Colorado Rockies, who could end up tying or being worse, maybe slightly better than that White Sox team. So it cannot happen. They do have pieces that are playing out of place, like Masyn Winn should not be a 3-hole hitter on a contending team like he was yesterday. It was the right decision, but it just goes to show you where the Cardinals are at right now with their offense. And hopefully you start to see some guys kind of figure things out. Burley, I'm kind of keeping an eye on here in the second half. He's a guy that struggled last year in the second half. Can he avoid that struggle this year? Ivan Herrera hit for power in the first half, not really slugging the ball here in the second half. Is he going to be able to figure that out while you're starting to get some positive returns on Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman?
And even if you are lacking, again, that prohibitive star, you should be able to, at present, be able to compete with a middling Yankees team arriving tomorrow at Busch Stadium. But that just completed series against Colorado, it absolutely personifies what you have seen from this 2025 roster, specifically from the lineup. And going into the offseason, that is the biggest really concern for me, the identity or lack thereof of an offensive 1 through 9 set roster, set series of components, as opposed to the bullpen right now, which yesterday's gaffe notwithstanding has looked very good since the trade deadline, and you would expect to follow up and respond in kind beginning tomorrow.
Well, it gets easier because they take on the Yankees, the desperate New York Yankees, tomorrow for a weekend series against New York. And we'll have more previews of that tomorrow on the show. We'll also talk with Brad Thompson and Mike McKenna. Macadoodle Mike will be with us tomorrow as well. For Tanner Hendrickson, Bradford Bruns, I'm Alex Ferrario. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 11 a.m. Fastlane coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
Get social with 101 ESPN. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, Threads, Blue Sky, and YouTube at 101 ESPN.